Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the You Don't Know Ball Show. And we are on our final conference preview series ahead of the college football season. And we had to wrap it up with the banger. I wouldn't say it's the best conference anymore. I would say the Big Ten. Maybe I'm a homer. But it's still the SEC, probably the most talked about conference in all of college football still. And we are here bringing you the deep dive to every single team. We are previewing all 16 teams. I get that right? 16 teams? Or is there 15? Am I botching that? Whatever. We're giving you all teams preview, what you need to know about them, the new guys that are joining them, new head coaches, their win totals, their schedule, everything you need to know. And we're going to break it down to you in the most unfiltered way possible and give our hot takes for this season. If this is your first time tuning into the You Don't Know Ball Show, my name is Sam. I am joined by my co-host Joe, and we talk college football every single weekly. It is week 0, by the way, as we're doing this. So we have college football kicking off this weekend. We got a couple decent games, right? We got North Carolina, TCU, Virginia, NC State. I know Joe's pretty excited for that UNLV night game. So that will be one to pay attention to as well. And we are in the swing of football season. It is upon us. You walk outside, it starts feeling like fall a little bit. I know it's August, but hey, leaves are starting to fall. I don't know. I'm pretty pumped for it. I cannot wait for this entire season, and especially next week when we start and get into our usual shows. As we've been doing, it's kind of been only the conference previews, but as we roll in, we're going to be starting our predictions for each week. We'll be doing reaction shows on every Sunday, recapping all the greatest takes and stuff that you might have missed, or maybe just giving our unique perspective on the biggest moments of the games on Saturday. So a lot of stuff is coming at your way, but before we get into it, we got to break down the SEC. We saved the best, as I just mentioned. No, I don't know if it's the best, but we saved it for last, and we got a lot to talk about here. So how we do these previews, first of all, Joe, how you doing today? You feeling good? You ready to get into this?
I'm doing great. We got football on Saturday. As you mentioned, it is feeling like fallout. Not today, but yesterday. Walked outside in the morning. It had that nice crisp breeze. Feeling like football. So fired up to be here. SEC, not the best conference, but definitely the deepest. Ton of, like, after we mentioned the bottom 4 pre-show. After that, a lot of good football teams. So fired up to get into it.
100%. And I mentioned, I don't know. What are your plans for Saturday? Because all I know is it's week 0, and maybe this is actually. I was listening to Josh. This is the first time I heard about it. Josh Pate was talking about week 0, and he said it was the last week 0 ever. I didn't even know that. So next year, it's merging all into week 1. So we won't be having any more week 0s after this. So we got to enjoy it. It is kind of cool though to get like the little preview. It's almost like the preseason, but it's the regular season. You know what I mean? So
it's the best.
Yeah,
I mean, I didn't know that.
Yeah, the Dublin game last year between Kansas State and Iowa State was actually a pretty good one. So I'm pumped to see if Bill Belichick gets out to a hot start there, especially in North Carolina as they take on TCU. I think TCU is pretty significant favorite though, like 7 points,
7.5.
So maybe not significant. It's still going to be worth watching. We'll probably end up giving a reaction show to that on Sunday, so stay tuned for it.
Real quick, Sam.
Yeah.
One game that's going to go unnoticed. Sac State, Eastern Michigan, early conference game. Sac State, first game in the MAC. That'll be a good one.
Wait, hold up. What'd you say, Sac State?
Sacramento State.
Oh, Sacramento State. That's right. Dude, I told you, they moved to the MAC, didn't they?
Yeah.
That was so I remember seeing that. That was okay.
Some action in week 0.
And who they play?
Eastern Michigan.
Eastern Michigan? Okay, maybe that's one worth paying attention. What time's that one at?
It's like right around NC State, Virginia. It's either 3:30 Eastern or 4:30 Eastern.
Okay, interesting. That will be one to also add on the slate. We'll get the quad box going. I might have to go buy a TV this weekend so I can have 2 of them. Just play all the games.
Yeah. I mean, that's sicko stuff, but for the sickos out there, that'll be a game to keep eyes on.
100%. All right, guys. So as we roll into the SEC conference preview, we got an action-packed show ahead of you guys. And how we break these ones down, we go from bottom to top. We're going to save the best teams for last and start with kind of the scrubs. Usually I break them into a tier where it's like you got the scrubs tier, the whole lot of mid tier, the possibly contending tier, and then the actual contenders. So we'll start with the scrubs tier. I would guess we got around 4 teams in the SEC conference that fall into that category. These are all the teams that are projected to finish last. And the first one that I got on our list that we're going to dive into is the Arkansas Razorbacks. Now, last season, the Arkansas They went 2-10. They were winless in SEC play. I believe they were the only team winless in SEC play. Maybe Kentucky was because Kentucky won, right? Um,
Uh, yeah,
right.
Kentucky got 2 games in the
Okay,
conference.
so yeah, they were winless in SEC play. Bobby Petrino, though, head coach, they had his offense pretty decent, right? They had him they were a top 25 offense. Quarterback Taylor Green running the show there. The only issue was they were a bottom 10 defense, so they could not stop shit. They couldn't stop cold. They played tight games though. Like I said, like if you go back and look at some of their games versus some of the other, like I think Texas and some of the other top dogs in the SEC, they played them tough. It's just the defense late game could not close it out at all. You look at them this year, they're bringing in new head coach from Memphis and also new offensive coordinator from Memphis. I actually don't have his name written down. Who do you know? Can you tell me his name?
Ryan
Tell the viewers his name.
Silverfield.
Ryan Silverfield. So he's coming over from Memphis, and they got a lot of portal guys with that. I would say on offense, their outlook, they lost their star running back Mike Washington, lost 2 of their top 3 receivers. They're currently going quarterback battle. Did they name KJ Jackson the starter yet, or is it still in a battle? So KJ Jackson's going to be the starter. He's a returner. Here's the old saying, though, especially this late in the season. If you got, I know some of the guys have been getting named quarterbacks, but if you got 2 quarterbacks, you got no quarterbacks, right? I feel like that's a common saying. So KJ Jackson didn't really separate himself that much, I would say, through this battle. So I don't know how much we can really expect from him. And especially with some of the weapons that they got, I would say that their number one weapon to look out for is Sutton Smith. He's from Memphis, came with his coach. And this team, like I said, 42 transfers. That was the 3rd most in the Power 4. It's going to be hard for them to click. I don't know how I feel. How do you feel about Arkansas?
Not great. I don't love the hire of Ryan Silverfield. In his 6 years at Memphis, never finished above 3rd place in the conference. He did win 10 games a few times. But as we touched on last week, the American, like, good football. When going through this, a lot of American coaches took SEC jobs. But I think Ryan Silverfield was like probably the last pick. He was kind of penciled in to get a job. I was surprised he got a job in the SEC. Touching on last year, you mentioned like they didn't win a game in the SEC, but looking at some of these scores in Oxford, 41-35. They lost to Memphis by 1. Lost to Tennessee by 3, A&M by 3, Miss State by 3, LSU by 1. The Texas game, they scored 37 points. And as you mentioned, they scored a ton of points last year. It wasn't the offense. It was the defense. They were horrible. 129th in scoring defense. Allowed nearly 34 points per game. That's pitiful. I mean, yeah, you mentioned the quarterback. Don't have much on him. Yeah, you hit the good old saying, 2 quarterbacks, no quarterbacks.
I had to be cautious with that saying, though, because as we're going to get into
Alabama,
some of the other teams,
yeah.
like Bama, Tennessee, even Florida, they had a QB battle, but the starting quarterback should be pretty decent. It's just they're more, true freshmen starting, so that's why the battle was kind of there. So you got to be weird with that, but in Arkansas situation, it's none of these guys are really separating.
When you're talking with like the Arkansas and the North Carolinas, like, that rule definitely applies. As far as the OC, Tim Cramsey obviously comes from Memphis with Silverfield. The offense they were a great unit last year, finished 35th in the country. So we'll see what happens. You mentioned Sutton Smith, and then there's a collection of other portal talent. Receiver room, Chris Marshall from Boise had like 600 yards last year. Then there's some other guys. I believe Chris Marshall bounced around the SEC. Excuse me.
Yeah.
Had some like disciplinary issues. So he's back in the SEC. We'll see what happens there. Defensively, the coordinator's Ron Roberts. He was most recently at Florida, I believe, under Billy Napier. And he was Baylor's DC in 2021 when they won the Big 12. So some good pedigree there. We'll see what happens. Obviously, bunch of portal talent. They lose. Is it Jeffrard? Ian Jeffrard, Texas now. Big D tackle. And then just getting into this year. I have them like 3-9. I have them winning a conference game. Schedule this year in the non-con. They have to go to Utah. So that'll be an early test. I guess we'll find out quick. And then week 3, Georgia. Week 5, A&M. So right off the rip, they're getting into some good conference play. They end the season at Auburn, South Carolina, home at Texas versus LSU. So schedule's brutal. I guess looking at my projections, I have them finishing 1-7. Getting like I gave them like a home win against like Mizzou because it is a tough place to play. Seems like I saw Josh Pate talk about this when he's talking about Arkansas. He's like, who are they going to clip? Meaning like whose season are they going to ruin? And I think that is fitting with Arkansas. I feel like you saw it last year. Almost happened like quite a few times.
Right.
So we'll see. I guess throughout my like other teams, I like always circled Arkansas. Like don't go into this spot sleeping. Because like they'll score points, and if you're not locked in, could be a tough one.
Yeah, I mean, it is going to be a fun matchup versus Utah early in the season. We're going to learn a lot about. I mean, I'm watching that game more for Utah in the Big 12, see what they shape out to be. But Arkansas being an SEC opponent, they may be the worst team in the SEC going into the year. But it's still going to be. I think Utah's a 7 to 9 point favorite right now. So who knows? We're going to learn a lot about those two programs pretty early. But like I said, Arkansas, bottom line, they're a scrub team in the SEC. Moving to the next scrub team in the SEC that I got this year, and that is Mississippi State. Now, last season, they went 5-8 after going 2-10 the year prior. So you're seeing some improvement under head coach Jeff Lebby. Now, you look at them last year, they got a big win, or I think it was week 2, maybe week 3 over Arizona State. And that was at a home in Starkville. Or no, that was was it on the road versus
Starkville?
Okay. So it was in Starkville. They got a big win versus ASU, but after that, they fell apart. They lost to Tennessee in overtime after starting 4-0. They lost to Florida 2 weeks later by 2 points, lost to Texas in overtime. So the offense hung in there for a lot of times, even versus the Ole Miss game. They played it pretty competitively, like the first half, and then just couldn't close things out. Like I said, head coach Jeff Lebby's remaining, defensive coordinator Zach Arnett. He's in the building now. He was actually their head coach, interim head coach in 2023, and their defensive coordinator from 2020 to 2022. So he spent a lot of time in the program. He was at Florida State last year, so they brought him back. He's going to be a new guy on the defense, and they're going to need him to step up because on the defensive line, I got some notes that they got some question marks there. I think one bright spot on the defensive side would be Kelly Jones. He's a star corner. I think he's possibly a top 5 corner in the country, so he's someone to watch there. And on offense, you're going to get quarterback Kamario Taylor. It's going to be his first season as a full-time starter. Very dual threat, can make some plays happen. So we'll see. I mean, trenches are a concern on the offensive line, so they're going to need that dual threat ability very much. And some weapons I have, wide receiver Anthony Evans is a NFL guy. The running back Fluff is also pretty solid. So they got some pieces all around, but like I said, in the trenches, they should probably be bottom tier in the conference. And yeah, it's just they struggle to close out games.
Yeah. Don't have too much on Miss State. I will say, I think some people are high on Jeff Lebby. Obviously made improvements last year. And then the young quarterback, Mario Taylor. I feel like I've just heard Brandon Walker gassing him up. So I guess we'll see what happens there. You mentioned last year they did score some points. The Texas loss was brutal. I think it was like double OT, blew a big lead. Last year, the defense was a mess. Last in rushing defense in the SEC, like 186 yards a game they allowed. And total defense as well, like over 400 yards a game. Zach Arnett back in the building. I guess we'll see. Looking at the schedule this year, we mentioned this when we did the Big Ten. This is an interesting non-con game. They go to Minnesota week 2. That'll be one to keep eyes on. In SEC play, they have Texas, Oklahoma, LSU, Bama. Actually, that's 4 games in a row. So that's a brutal stretch.
Yeah.
So we'll see. And then the rivalry game, Ole Miss is in Oxford this year.
Interesting. All right, yeah, let's move on to enough time on that. We're trying to spend as least time possible on these scrub teams so we can get to the teams that are actually really interesting to talk about. And with that, let's move over to Kentucky. Now, does it feel disrespectful to put Kentucky in the scrubs tier? They brought over Will Stein, new head coach. He's got a lot of buzz. They brought over quarterback Kenny Minchey. He came from Notre Dame in the transfer portal. Kenny Minchey's a guy that I'm pretty high on. Not really proud to say it, but when he was battling it out with CJ Carr throughout camp, I thought Kenny Minchey was looking like he could be the better option for the Irish just because he brings that dual threat ability. Good thing they didn't go that route, and good thing Marcus Freeman knows a little bit more than me. But I've also seen that there's some people that might compare Kentucky to, this is very out there. This is probably a very big overreaction, but Joe, I want to get your take on it.
Indiana?
To compare Kentucky to this year's Indiana.
So, I mean, I'm going to say the obvious. I don't quite see it just because of the conference. I don't know if it'd be possible to do what Indiana did in year one without, getting the likes of Maryland and Rutgers and Purdue
Mm,
littered on your schedule. It just doesn't exist in the SEC. Like, I'm going through every team. Like, I feel like for literally every team, I wrote brutal schedule just because that's how it is in the SEC.
right.
That being said, I am really high on Will Stein. And I think the duo of him and Minchie's quite interesting. I think they'll score a ton of points this year. Um, Let me see. I have a bunch of stuff here on my notes on them. Last year, the offense was bad. It was like 100th, 101st in FBS.
Hmm.
That'll change quickly. I think it's just a matter of what's the defensive personnel going to look like. Um, so we'll see. Like, my question about Kentucky in my notes is, will Minchie and Stein get it going year one? I say probably not. Just because they're in the SEC. Um, they move on from Mark Stoops after 13 years. Feel like that just got a little bit stale. And I would say the athletic department probably agreed. Like last year, they went 5-7. I don't recall exactly what expectations were going into the year, but I feel like 5-7 is not like out of the realm of what they should have expected. So the fact they moved on from Stoops probably showed they just needed some new energy in that building, a new face of the program. And Stein was terrific at Oregon. I don't know how
Right.
many years he was there, if he was just there with Lanning, but it was one of the best offenses in the country. Schedule this year, week 2 early conference game. They get Alabama. It's at home. They played early last year as well, and then right after they go to A&M. So once again, tough start early, and then they have a stretch of at South Carolina, LSU, at Oklahoma. And then I guess they get the rivalry game with Louisville at home. Interesting note on Will Stein. He was a Louisville Cardinal, and apparently a lot of the staff was too.
Okay.
So that's an interesting note. But I have
Hmm.
them 3-9. The win total's 4.5. So I guess I'm a little bearish on them compared to what Vegas thinks.
Yeah. So you said Will Stein was a Louisville Cardinal. Did he play for Louisville or was he
Yeah,
a coach there? It's
yeah,
so my point is that it's interesting seeing these guys, and I wonder what it's like for them going from your rival to like going to your rival school, and you'll even see it. We'll talk about wide receiver Parker Livingstone that went from Texas to Oklahoma later in the show, and it's like, how do you really go from someone like absolutely hating this program, and then transferring to him? Like I went to Lehigh, and our rival was Lafayette, and it's like for me to go transfer to Lafayette, it just feels like I don't know. It just feels like that it's just like an unwritten rule you don't do. So, but nowadays it's like I guess people don't take rivalries that serious anymore. I mean, I'm sure Will Stein was in Louisville years and years ago, so maybe, but like still, if you're an alumni, I don't know. It's just
I think it's
interesting thing
different.
to think about.
I think it's different when you're a coach. I mean, I don't want to get too personal here, but
Hmm.
your coaching staff at school. So like it's different when you're a
Yeah,
coach.
no, that's fair. Yeah, it's fair. It's fair. It's just something I was thinking about. Well, all right, let's move on to our next team on our list, and that is going to be the Vanderbilt Commodores. Now, last season, they were 10-3 and one of the best statistical offenses led by our boy Diego Pavia, who finished second in Heisman. Pavia, however, has left the program. He did not get drafted in the NFL, signed a training camp with the Ravens, got released, and I'm not really sure what he's doing right now. Maybe the UFL? Haven't really seen, heard, or anything. I even saw that there was buzz that he can pull a Tommy Castellanos that we just saw today and come back to the college for another year, but probably not going to happen. Anyways, with Vanderbilt though, last season, what a year it was for him, right? I mean, they finished 15th in the final AP poll. They had some pretty decent wins. Their best win was hosting an LSU team. Actually, I take that back. I mean, yeah, their best win was hosting LSU, which at the time I thought LSU was going to come in there and maybe not destroy, but take care of business. And you just saw Garrett Nussmeier was hurt that game in Vanderbilt. I think one thing to know about Vanderbilt is they've been in the news recently with their quarterback decision, and that was so 5-star. So there was a quarterback battle going on between Blake Berlowitz and 5-star true freshman Jared Curtis. And so Clark Lee, head coach, announced that Blake Burtis is going to be the quarterback one starting their season opener, and Jared Curtis is going to take meaningful snaps in their opener versus Austin P. But that's kind of drawn the fan base apart in a sense because Jared Curtis came to Vanderbilt. He was originally committed to Georgia, decommitted twice actually, and he went to Vanderbilt with the intentions that this was going to give him the best chance to play right away. That's why he didn't go to Georgia. He didn't want to spend time sitting behind Gunnar Stockton. So for Clark Lee to bench him to start the season at least, I don't know. He could be ended up being the starter in week 3. I just don't understand what the mindset is. I don't know, and maybe there's two things that could have happened right here. It's like maybe Blake Berlowitz is a senior. He's been in the coaching regime for a little bit, and they're rewarding him, wanting him to get a start versus a lesser opponent, not a conference opponent, because of his loyalty. Maybe rewarding him for that. Maybe he did ball out in camp, or maybe Jared Curtis just didn't perform well. It's a lot of questions that are going on right now, but everyone expected Jared Curtis to be the starter of this team. And I think that he will be by midseason, but then it goes, why are you not trying to get him meaningful, like the most reps possible in these non-conference games before he gets to SEC play? Get him his reps. I'm not really sure about that. What is your take? What do you think about that, Joe? What and the whole Vanderbilt quarterback situation that's going on now?
Yeah, so I definitely don't think it's a situation where Jared Curtis is like in the coaching staff's mind slotted to be the starter by week 3 or 4, for example, because as you mentioned, this would be the time to get him reps. Austin P and then Delaware. So this would be the time if they believed in him and they thought at some point this season he would be the starter. I think he would have been announced the week 1 starter. Especially considering the expectations with Vanderbilt this year. It's not like, it's flirting with playoff expectations. I think it's known it's going to be a down year for them. And then as you mentioned, just the whole, like, do they want to give Berlowitz, like, just because he's been there, he's been the backup, or are they doing it just kind of like a thank you type thing? Absolutely not. Yeah. That kind of goes into the Austin Mack discussion, following DeBoer. Like, I just don't think that exists at this level.
Right.
So, yeah, it could be a situation where it's like we wanted him to win the job. He's probably more talented, but he didn't win the job, so we can't just give it to him.
Yeah. I was going to say with Vanderbilt, too, like I said, we'll see Jared Curtis at some point in the season. I don't know if that'll be week 2, week 3, week 4. But credit to Blake. Or is it Blaze Berlowitz or is it Blake? Am I messing his name up? It is Blaze. Okay, sorry, Blaze Berlowitz. Yeah, I mean maybe he just earned the job. I know Diego Pavia tweeted out and said that this is a dog, so I'm looking forward to see how he does week 1 in that offense because he's got some weapons. So his top weapons are going to be Junior Sherrill. He was second on the team in yards last year. He's got tight end Cole Spence. Their top 2 running backs are back as well, including Cedric Alexander, who had some moments last season with that were really special, I would say. Their offensive line, though, they lost 4 starters. However, their offensive line was horrible last season, and they overcame it. So I don't think it's that drastic to lose those guys. And then on defense, I mean, their secondary is experienced and talented. Safety CJ Hurd, he's a guy to watch. He's all over the field. They got to transfer Ricardo Jones from Clemson. He can be a ball hawk. And other than that, like, their secondary is experienced, but as you look towards the defensive line and maybe even the linebacker play, I know they got some returners, but can they improve enough to where Diego Pavia isn't forced to carrying and driving them to victories? That's my question for that unit.
Yeah. I don't have too much on Vandy. Me and Sam kind of split these bottom teams up, so I didn't look into Vandy too much. I guess just looking at the schedule, after those 2 bye games, Austin P Delaware, non-con game against NC State, and that's in Nashville. That'll be an interesting game. And the first 2 games of SEC play, at Auburn, at Georgia. So I guess we'll see. I guess in the grand scheme of things, they avoid LSU, they avoid Texas and Oklahoma. So somewhat favorable draw. And yeah, they get Bama at home this year. Remember that was a big spot last year when Pavia. They went into Tuscaloosa. I think they were undefeated. The LSU game was the week after, actually. I think Bama ended up beating them pretty good.
Yeah, they did. So, yeah, that was probably the first game that we saw Vanderbilt really get punched in the mouth. And kind of they were close, but not elite.
They got humanized is what happened.
Exactly. Because, I mean, when you think about the Texas game, too, it's in a sense where they were pretty much dominated by Texas. I remember the first drive of the game. I think Ryan Wingo had like a 60-yard touchdown. And I know the final score was 34-31. It was like a
I
three-point
think it was
victory.
31-0.
Well, no. I'm talking Texas Vanderbilt.
Yeah, I think at one point it was 31-0.
Well, that's what I was getting at. I don't know
Yeah.
like Texas was dominating that entire game, and
Yeah,
Vanderbilt stat padded at the end when they put their backups in. So it wasn't as close as the box score will show you. But yeah, we'll see how they do with either Blaze Burowitz or if he's going to play most of the year or when they put Jared Curtis.
I forgot about the whole Jared Curtis thing, how he decommitted a few times. So he's definitely, I mean, they definitely gave, if I remember, he got a bag.
Oh, he did. He's making $2 million this year in NIL.
Yeah. So I wonder if it's like the Bryce Underwood situation where like Bryce Underwood technically has a 3-year contract. I wonder if Curtis is under something like that because I don't know if they would have done this if they run the risk of losing him in the offseason.
That was part of the debate where it's Vanderbilt fans are like, we're going to piss off Jared Curtis that he's going to end up leaving us. And that's why they're kind of coming at Clark Lee. But I don't know. He's still a young guy. I'm sure there's a valid reason that they made that decision.
For sure.
Okay, let's go on to our next team. And I think we're reaching the tier where it's more a whole lot like mid SEC teams. And the first team I want to start with is South Carolina. Head coach Shane Beamer is on the hot seat for sure. He was one of the, I think when I did a list of top 5 coaches in the hot seat, I think he was like number 3 because Shane Beamer, I mean, it's his 6th season. You're coming off a rough 4-7 season last year where they fired offensive coordinator Mike Shula, fired some other coaches as well. And you look at the core that South Carolina has right now, and not only quarterback Lenore Sellers, who I believe his talent should put him in as a top 3 quarterback in the SEC, his dual threat ability, I will stand on that. You also got Nick Harbor, who's a very good wide receiver. I mean, he's definitely a day 2 pick in the NFL draft. You got Dylan Stewart, who's hovering around a top 10 pick in the NFL draft at edge rusher. And they just picked up Jacarius Peak from NC State. They gave him $1 million in the NAL to hold down left tackle position. So you got a good 4 legit guys on your team. If you're telling me you can't plug in the pieces around those 4 guys to win more than 5 games this season, I mean, they should definitely be 500, but I'm talking the SEC. I mean, they should be competing in the SEC. There's no excuses around that. When you have, in my opinion, it's the second best quarterback in the SEC, and pieces like that, you got a stud on defense like Dylan Stewart. But then it's like there's also some injury concerns with Dylan Stewart, which I don't know if you paid attention to about that, Joe, but it's like back in April, Shane Beamer was talking about when Dylan Stewart was dealing with something that, why are we even questioning his status for week 1? He's going to be ready. And he was kind of brushing it all over. And then I see him this week that they're not sure if he's going to be ready for week 1. So they've been kind of going back and forth all the way since April. I'm not really sure what's going on there. Because if they don't have Dylan Stewart, and Jacarius Peak is also dealing with something, because we know Lenore Sellers struggled last year strictly because that offensive line was getting bullied day in and out. You need Jacarius Peak to anchor down. So if they don't have him, that's a huge loss. That's going to be the bottom line for them, in my opinion. If everyone's healthy, there's no excuses for them to be a 500 team at least.
For sure. As far as Dylan Stewart, I don't think it probably won't be announced until a few days before the game, September 5th against Kent State, but I'm reading lingering back issue.
Okay.
That's just never good. That's like the good old, like in baseball, if someone has a lingering back problem and they're 20 years old, that's not good.
Yeah.
And then as far as Peak, I know it was reported like throughout the whole spring that he was dealing with the knee thing. So don't know if he'll be ready. That being said, I mean, it was probably him and Jordan Seaton in terms of the best tackles in the portal. So an unreal get and something they had to do to protect the quarterback because last year was unacceptable. As you said, they fired the OC. They bring in Kendall Briles, Art Briles' kid. So a lot of good press being pumped around him. I saw a Shane Beamer interview. I forget who it was with, where he kind of went into the hiring of the offensive coordinator. Seemed like Sellers kind of signed off on this one. So he had some say. And just as far as just kind of going back to the top with Beamer, you mentioned hot seat. That's without a doubt. Last year was awful. They go from 9 wins, beating Clemson last game of the season, being right on that playoff bubble, to 4 wins and 1 win in the conference last year. One thing to note, after they went 5-7 in 23. They followed it up with the 9-win season. So I guess the question is Shane Beamer's team going to bounce back again? He kind of does. His teams just kind of give off that vibe of like when you count them out, they do respond. If you think of the end of last year, they almost clipped A&M and ruined their season. And
they almost beat Bama too as well.
Yeah, and I believe that was in back-to-back weeks. So they are a pesky group. The thing with Sellers is just I'm not going to quit him. And I think we talked about this when we did our quarterbacks, because I swear if you squint, you see Cam Newton, and it comes out sometimes. So I'm going to buy into the hiring of the new coordinator. I heard I forget who it was. It was one of the Josh Pates of the world talking about how last year it seemed like things just got too complicated on offense. And when you combine that with the fact with the offensive line, how bad it was, you couldn't allow these players to they couldn't just play ball. Right. When you think about Nick Harbor, he needs the football in his hands. Don't make it too complicated. Just give him the football. If Lenore Sellers can just have I don't know what the word I'm looking for is, just average protection up front, that at least gives him a shot to succeed. So I think like that duos could be one of the best in the conference. And then they bring in Nitro Tuggle from Purdue, a receiver as well. So like good little duo there. And then Christian Clark, running back from Texas. And then there's another running back. The only reason I know this is because they hired Penn State's running back coach, Stan Drayton, former head coach at Temple University. They brought like a back who just never played because he was behind Katron and Singleton. Defensively, Dylan Stewart, incredible. He's slotted to be like top 10, top 15 pick. We'll see if he plays, because what I'm reading about this lingering back problem, that just sounds like a nightmare. And then, they bring in some transfers on the interior D line, help shore up the run game. And then let me just get to my schedule notes here. Yeah, so from October 24th on, they go, and this is in order: home Tennessee, at Oklahoma, home Texas A&M, at Arkansas, one of those games where it's like, if South Carolina is good, can't be going sleeping in that one. Then Georgia, and then the rivalry game at Clemson. So we'll see. What do you have? I don't know if you have, like, how many games do you think they win?
I don't have an exact prediction, but they should be over 500. There's no.
What do you think their win total is?
Oh, their win total is, I had it pulled up.
I have it. I was just gonna like see what I was gonna see, like what you thought.
Yeah, 6.5. So it's right around there.
So in my notes, because I did this for every team, like win loss, I have 8-4. Okay. Just because I won't quit them.
They should.
But that being, but like the thing with them, it's such a low floor with such a high ceiling. So I could see if someone said they win 5 games, Shane Beamer gets fired. I can't say you're crazy, but then if you tell me they win 9 games, so like on the bubble for the playoff, I think that's realistic as well. And then I think for Beamer to save his job, even if he does go 7-5, it can't be messy. It has to look good. Like, they can't lose games that they should have won and things like that. It needs to look good and structured and looks like they're building something. So this might be the most interesting team in the conference.
Mm-hmm. All right, with that, let's go to our next team. And I think as we move into these next round of teams, they're a little more attractive just from a talking standpoint. And we'll start with the Florida Gators. And I know I just use Florida Gators attractive. If you looked at them last season, there's no way you can even put those 2 words in a sentence. They went 4-8. They fired Billy Napier mid-season. Their offense was atrocious, averaged just 21.6 points per game. I guess for these next teams, we could start by some of the key players they lost and added. So they lost one, DJ Lagway. He's not going to be quarterbacking anymore. He went to Baylor. And another key guy is Eugene Wilson, wide receiver. He's now at LSU. In the draft, they lost defensive tackle Caleb Banks. He went 18th overall to the Vikings. They also lost someone like Jake Slaughter, who was their center, offensive tackle Austin Barber, both day 2 picks. Who do they add, though? From the portal, they got wide receiver Eric Shingleton Jr. He had over 2,000 yards at his time in Auburn. And then he also got center Harrison Moore from Georgia Tech. That should hopefully fill that void with Jake Slaughter at center gone. They brought in, it's the big head coaching hire, John Sumrall from Tulane. He's coming in, and yeah, there's a lot of buzz around him coming on. I know in his opening press conferences, you could just tell that he's a very aggressive coach, all business. He's not taking shit, and hopefully that's what Florida needs right now. I mean, Joe, I think you can touch more on some of their personnel groupings, but I know they just named Aaron Philo from Georgia Tech to transfer as their starting quarterback. What are your thoughts on him and the rest of this offense going into the season?
Yeah. So they did. I think it was this week. They named Philo the starter. Well, it was kind of rumored it was going to go that way. Um, the offensive coordinator that John Summerall chose to hire, Buster Faulkner, he was the Georgia Tech offensive coordinator, so he brings his guy with him. Everyone kind of knew it was coming. It was just a matter of when they announced it. You kind of mentioned with Florida, they need stability. I want to say, so I have in my notes, fifth head coach since 2014. Haven't won the SEC since 2008. So really since Spurrier and Urban, it's just been a mess. Faulkner brings over a bunch of guys with him. Receivers from Georgia Tech, Eric Singleton, Bailey Stockton, and then tight end Luke Harping as well. So some familiarity there, which is interesting. And then they do return Vernell Brown the third, and then the back Jaden Ball. How do you say his last name? Bow?
Jaden Ball, yeah, he's a borderline top 5 running back in my opinion. I think I did a list and I had him at number 6, so he's going to be their anchor on the
1,100 yards, 8 touchdowns, 220 carries. So workhorse back. And then defensively, they bring over Brad White as the coordinator from Kentucky. And they did retain some talent. Miles Graham, linebacker, led the team in tackles last year. And safety, Bryce Thornton, and he was second team in tackles. And then an edge rusher, Jaden Woods, as well. So that they do retain some talent. And then LJ McCray missed all last year with a broken foot. So he'll be back this year. And then there was this transfer from Jacksonville State who got gassed up. I'm not going to try his name. DN, 6'6", 300 pounds. And then he's from Manchester, England. But apparently he's a freak. Only had 4.5 sacks last year. Probably just one of those projectable things. As I said, he's 6'6". So I guess just keep an eye on him. Going into last year, 4-8. Beginning of the season, they lose the two teams in their backyard. They lose to Alex Golish and USF. And then they lost to Miami. Pretty sure game day was there. And then obviously they moved on from Billy Napier, which was probably a little bit overdue. This year, the non-con, a bit lighter. FAU Campbell, and then they have FSU again. So, yeah, I would say overall, I just think the duo of Philo, Buster Faulkner, the new OC, and then I'm just high on John Summerall. You kind of mentioned him. You know it, like, when you see a head coach stand in front of the podium, some of them just have that presence.
Did you see the thing about some reporter had their phone go off, and he was dead serious and was, like, legitimately pissed off, like, yelled at him?
Yeah, and that's how you know he's a sicko, because he tried to do the thing where he was like, tried to make it a joke, but you could tell in the moment he was genuinely like pissed
100%.
off.
Yeah, 100%.
It was great. That's a key example right there. That's something that like in pro sports that gets you fired like very quickly, but that's the type of presence you need leading a locker room of young men in collegiate locker rooms. I think that's like a good sign for them. That's what they need. This year, just going through. I think this is like a really good game. Week 3, Florida goes to Jordan Hare at Auburn. So you got Golish, Summerall. They know each other very well. That'll be an interesting one. If Florida does get that one, they have Ole Miss the next week, which I marked in as a loss. But say they get that Auburn one, then they go to Mizzou, South Carolina at home. So like, there's a chance if this Philo thing hits, they could start out with a decent record and have some momentum, like being ranked like top 20-ish.
I mean, I'm seeing some people already rank them in the top 25 preseason, which is a little insane to me. I wouldn't do it. I guess I can understand it.
Okay. I didn't know that.
But there's some people, I've seen some lists have Florida around like 25, 24 in a preseason because they're pretty high on Summerall and the other talent that they got. Because they got talent there. It's just kind of pieced together.
Yeah, I have 7 and 5. And I actually have my notes like I could see 8 and 4 just the way the schedule lines up. They get like some not gimme games, but like South Carolina at home. Like that should be a game that they feel they can win. They get Vandy at home. That should be a game they feel like they can win. They go to Kentucky. Like that's another one. Obviously 2 first-year head coaches, but you're Florida. Like that's a game that you should feel like you can win. Mizzou on the road, another winnable conference game if there is such thing in the SEC. They have some tough spots at Texas, Georgia. Actually, I saw this. Georgia, they play it's Florida, Georgia. The game's at the Falcon Stadium. I don't know why that's a thing. That's dumb. But yeah, another team with intrigue going into the season, just because like just growing up, it was the Florida Gators. I guess like a little bit before us, honestly, because when we were growing up, they were just kind of mid. But if we could see them get back to the Herb and Steve Spurrier, college football is a better place when Gainesville has the Gators.
Ain't that the truth? I hope they get back because there's nothing like the Swamp. Definitely a place I want to make it down to. All right, let's go over to our next team on the list, and that is the Auburn Tigers. Last season, they finished with a 5-7 year. They were only 1-7 in the SEC, though. Only beat Arkansas. They played a couple tight games. I remember versus Alabama, obviously in the Iron Bowl. They played it pretty tight. I feel like they could have won that game if not for some careless mistakes maybe at the end. You could look at them coming in this year. They lost. I mean, their biggest loss was Keldrick Falk, their first rounder. He was a first rounder edge rusher to Titans selected him. He was actually their program's first round draft pick since 2020. So they haven't had some premier talent in a little bit. Yeah. And they also lost edge rusher Kenyon Crawford in the third round. He won the third round. They lost 2 linemen in the draft. From the portal, their biggest loss was Cam Coleman, wide receiver. He went over to Texas, as we'll talk about later in the show. Who did they gain, though? New head coach Alex Golesh. He's coming over and from USF, and I feel like they got how many? They brought in 13 former transfers from 13 former USF transfers. So yeah, you're gonna get a lot of the South Florida. If you're a South Florida fan, I wouldn't be surprised if you turn your fan base into Auburn in a sense. And including in that transfer was quarterback Byron Brown, one of the most premier, like absolute stud dual threat. I can't forget that Boise State game last season where he just ran over, bullied that defense. So fun to watch. And he was at Auburn the year prior, and he also showed a lot of. I think he was injured. A lot of his career got off to a shaky start, I would say, with just kind of some injuries, and then comes over to USF, has a great season, just balling out. He's a really electric guy, and I'm glad to see him at an SEC program put on against some of the top teams. I'm pretty pumped to watch him. Again, it's just like Auburn, do they have enough pieces around on defense? I mean, they should, like their premier program. It's just like Alex Golesh. I think a goal would be if you get 7 wins, I think that's not what Auburn fans really want. But as long as you find some progression in this program, especially from last year where maybe you're going on those recruiting trips throughout the season and you snag some more recruits and keep putting those building blocks in place to where next season or even the year prior, you're in a better position to compete. So I think it's more of a building year for Auburn, not really contending.
Yeah, I think that's the main thing with Auburn. What is a successful season? Like, what are the expectations? Because this isn't, 2012 with Gus Malzahn, Cam Newton. The program's in a completely different place. I forget. Was it Malzahn right into Hugh Freeze, or was there someone in between?
Not sure.
Yeah. But yeah, program in a completely different place. You mentioned Alex Golesh. He was not the most coveted hire from the Auburn fan base. I think there was like people were mad that they hired him. And I don't get that, to be frank. Coach in the SEC. He was Josh Heupel's offensive coordinator year 1, I believe, of Heupel. Had a terrific offense and takes the USF job. 23-15 there, but last year was terrific. It was them and Tulane. I believe they played to go to the playoff. And then you mentioned the quarterback, Byron Brown. Like 3,100 passing yards, over 1,000 yards on the ground, 42 total touchdowns. So we'll see how that works out in the SEC. You mentioned they bring over just a ton of USF guys. I'm seeing like 5 receivers, and then a bunch of the O-line guys. They do return Jeremiah Cobb, a running back, almost like 1,000 yards last year. Help out the quarterback. Interesting note about the defense. He convinced DJ Durkin to stay as the defensive coordinator. Was the interim coach, kind of like the Terry Smith situation. He's sticking around at State College. Obviously, he's not the D coordinator. Or maybe like Brent Pry going back to Vatech. So. Like that, the defense wasn't bad last year, 7th in the SEC in scoring defense, and they were 3rd against the run. They returned their leading tackler and sack guy, Xavier Atkins, and then they do bring in some interesting D-line guys from the portal. Deshaun Womack, Ole Miss, Nate Johnson, Mizzou, and then some guys in the secondary as well. Last year, obviously, the offense was brutal. Auburn was a tough watch. Hugh Freeze, massive disappointment in Auburn. Just remember the stuff coming out about him in those tea times during the season and stuff. So yeah, it was definitely time to move on. As I mentioned, that week 3 game against Florida, I think it's really interesting. And then they have a stretch in the middle. They go at Tennessee, at Georgia versus LSU, at Ole Miss. That's a bear right there. So we'll see. I have 6-6, and then going back to the expectation thing, which we started off with, I think a bowl game in year 1 of Golish is a successful season. I don't know what expectations are in Auburn, but they shouldn't be anything drastically above
I
that.
think the expectations in Auburn is to make a freaking college football playoff, at least from the fans. I mean, it's unrealistic expectations, but given the statue or the pedestal like the program has been on for historically, they don't want to hear that a bowl game is a success. However, I think it's pretty obvious that would be, and that should probably be their
Do they just have
goal.
the one national title?
Yeah, I think so with Cam. I mean, can't really. Yeah, that's good. That's a good one to look up.
I'll get back to you on that.
Yeah, get back to me on that. As we move off Auburn and maybe go into our next team, let's go to. I'm in between right now, 2 teams, Missouri. Let's go to Missouri, which was kind of took the SEC world a little bit by storm. I don't think at least to start the season, because they started 5-0 last year, and then they went and played, or they hosted Bama. Kind of caught Bama at the wrong time in the midst of their hot streak and lost by 3 points. It wasn't really a bad game by them by any means. Just like I said, Ty Simpson made some really good throws. They ended up losing 4 games in the SEC. They also lost the Tax Slayer Gator Bowl to Virginia as well. They lost. They actually had the most players ever in the NFL draft get selected this past draft. So they lost a lot of guys like Zion Young, edge rusher, went in the 2nd round. Linebacker Josiah Trotter to the Bucks. Defensive tackle Chris McLean, O-lineman Keegan Trost are all gone. Who do they add? Maybe from the portal, they got linebacker Robert Woodyard from Auburn, actually. He was an all-SEC linebacker. They also got Caden Lee from Ole Miss. He was a reliable wide receiver. He made some decent catches in Ole Miss's run to the college football semis. I think a key for the Auburn, I mean, as you look at head coach Eli Drinkwitz, he's in his 7th season. Their quarterback is going to be Austin Simmons. He's transferring over from Ole Miss. He started the first couple games for Ole Miss last year before dealing with a little bit of injuries, and then Trinidad Chambliss just took over from them in his absence. Bo Prabula has left the program. I thought he wasn't bad last season at points, but again, he kind of got hurt and just didn't really catch foot again after that. The key for Missouri this year and why they were successful last season was because of their run game, right? They should still have one of the top offensive lines in the country. I believe they're the 2nd best offensive line in the SEC, especially when you got the number 1 running back in the country in Ahmad Hardy. Now, there's a caveat. Ahmad Hardy's probably not going to play week 1. Hopefully he's back for SEC play, and that's because I don't know the full story. Maybe you know, Joe. He got shot. He's recovering from a gunshot wound, and I guess is the way his rehab is going. They're kind of just waiting to see how his body reacts to some of the different conditioning throughout practice, because he's fine. He's fine right now. It's just a more conditioning aspect. His target return is mid-September, so hopefully they have him back by week 3, week 4. But it's still a little bit up in the air. I mean, they need him. If Missouri wants to be good, they had the number 1 rushing offense the first 5 weeks last season. It was key to their success.
Yeah. As far as Ahmad Hardy, he was shot at a concert.
Okay.
This was back in May. Don't know. It's just kind of what I remember. Don't know the details in terms of the speed of his recovery. Obviously, your star running back would prefer he's not putting himself in environments where, that's plausible. Hope he's well. But, yeah, you mentioned the two big things here, and it's Austin Simmons and Eli Drinkwitz. I think he's at an interesting point coming off. He got an extension. He's making $10 million a year. And then another expectation setting type thing. You go back to 23, 11-2. I want to say they beat Ohio State, and I forget what bowl game that was. And Devin Brown played for Ohio State. And then 24, they end up with 10 wins. And last year, they take the step down. Obviously, dealing with some things at quarterback. Prabula gets hurt. Season kind of goes downhill from there. And then circling back to Austin Simmons, one of the more fascinating situations last year. him coming into Ole Miss. Trinidad kind of comes out of nowhere.
Mhm.
I want to say Simmons ended up starting 2 games at the beginning of the season.
Yeah, it was 2 games.
Yeah. And then obviously that whole situation happened. He goes over to Columbia. So super interesting. I mean, 6'4", 215, prototype quarterback. Did it in his 2 games. He threw 5 picks. So I guess he's not afraid to let the ball fly. So we'll see what happens there. Offensively, you mentioned the run game. That's going to be the staple for them. It should be the staple. They should play through the 2 backs, Jamal Robert as well. So I think they should be fine in the non-con until they get Hardy back. O-line, a bunch of seniors. Just talking in terms of like offensive line units, if you're going to give me a unit with continuity or a unit with suburb talent, I think continuity for the offensive line is more valuable. So that run game should not skip a beat. They get Ole Miss transfer, Caden Lee at receiver, and then they return. I don't know if you got his name, Sam Donovan. Don't want to try and say his last name. Had like 30 catches last year. So some decent pieces there. Defensively, Corey Batoon entering his 3rd season as coordinator. First 2 years, defense was top 20 in scoring defense. That being said, they do only return 4 starters that played significant snaps last year. You mentioned Robert Woodyard coming in from Auburn, and then corners Chris Graves from Ole Miss, and then Julio Florence from Oregon. So some high-end talent on the back end. I guess you gotta give the defensive coordinator the benefit of the doubt. The units have been good, but it really all comes down to the quarterback, and we'll see how that situation pans out. As I mentioned last year, 8 wins, 4 wins in the conference. I believe, I don't have the full schedule pulled up in front of me, but I believe it went downhill at the end quickly. I think they had a good record.
Yeah, they started 5-0. And after that Bama game, just struggled to find their footing, I would say.
Yeah, and then just a quick story. I don't know if you remember this, Sam, but last year when we were at the whiteout, there's a guy to our left who was like a Mizzou guy.
I do remember that, yeah.
And it was right after they beat Kansas.
Yeah, and he was talking about Bo Perbula, or no, he was talking about one of the quarterbacks.
He was talking about Bo and Drinkwitz. And at this point, like, you have to think they're coming off the 11-win season, 10-win season, and then they started out really good. They beat Kansas, and that was kind of a crazy game. And he was like, yeah, like, he was like talking about Eli Drinkwitz like he's like the next coming of Christ. And then and he was talking about Bo too, like Bo can have like any job he wants out of college. Like, the boosters love him, and it was just kind of funny to see how that ended up. But yeah, this year, I guess I have it similar. Like, the way the first 5 games break, I have them 5-0, but then the last 7's like at Ole Miss, at Georgia, Texas, Oklahoma, A&M, and then like the at Arkansas spot, always sneaky. I have them going 6-6 this year. Win total 6.5, so it's kind of right on par. If Simmons is terrific, they could win 8-9 games. I just don't necessarily see it from like the receiver standpoint. Run game's great, but the defense, they lose a lot of starters. So that's where I'm at with Mizzou.
Well said. All right, let's go to our next team now. Tennessee Volunteers, the Vols. So last season, a little bit of a disappointing, mainly because of the defense, very sloppy, a lot of points. Joey Aguilar at quarterback, it was complete air raid. The passing offense was very good, especially Chris Brazzell. I mean, he was an absolute stud. I was actually at the Georgia game early in the season where it was an absolute shootout. And what a heartbreaker in overtime. I know the kicker missed a couple. I forget Tennessee's kicker at the time, but he missed some big kicks. And then just the defense, it was very sloppy. And that was a story for him all year, I would say. 8-4 record. Who did they lose in the draft? Well, they lost Colton Hood, 2nd-round pick, cornerback. They also lost Jermod McCoy, who was originally like projected first-round pick, and then fell all the way to I think it was the 3rd or 4th round. And I also lost some other guys like on the defensive side, Tyler West and Joshua Josephs. Josh Heupel's entering his 6th season. And a new change in Knoxville is going to be defensive coordinator Jim Knowles from Penn State. And one thing to note is who they brought in. They brought 2 of Penn State's but like key defensive guys in Chaz Coleman, edge rusher, and then linebacker Amari Campbell. So I think that's going to be huge, very huge additions to revamp that defense that looked lost at a lot of points. And I know, Joe, you being a Penn State guy, can touch a little bit more on them. But we also got to focus on the quarterback battle that just happened. So Faison Brandon was named the starter as a true freshman. He beat out George McIntyre, and you never see that, especially from someone like Josh Heupel, name a freshman starter so quick. I think the last time that happened was back in 2004. So he must have had a really, really good spring and fall, which all the reports indicate that he did. He was very good on the deep ball. There was everyone has been talking about how he was so bought into the scheme, even on vacations throughout summer camp. He would actually stay in Knoxville and stay in the facility just so he can get caught in on the fundamentals and even more accumulated to the playbook. So he worked his ass off to get to the spot. He's always had the talent. It was just a matter of maybe he wants a year of experience. But George McIntyre, he looks like it was in line. It was his job to win. But I mean, Faison Brandon beat him out. And he does bring a huge dynamic to this offense as far as his rushing ability, his deep ball accuracy, like being able to sling it. And as a true freshman like that, I don't know if there's a better situation you could be put into. I mean, he's got a very experienced and veteran offensive line. They're bringing back two all SEC wide receivers, Mike Matthews and Braylon Stanley. Probably one of the better duos you'll see in the conference. They also got running back Deshaun Bishop. He went for over 1,100 yards last season. So he's got the pieces around him to succeed in his first season easily.
Yeah. Josh Heupel, one of the more underrated coaches in the country. Seems like he kind of brought stability to Tennessee, sort of like what Florida needs. Like, they were bouncing around coaches. They get Heupel. They make the CFP in 24. A lot of noise around the program with the Nico thing. Seems like he always just figures it out. Always has an offense that's going to put up points. The interesting thing that I kind of forgot about in 24, they were kind of just running the ball and playing good defense when they made the playoff. So he shows some versatility there. Isn't afraid to run the ball if that's going to be a sticking point. So that could be something to note with the young quarterback. Do they start to lean on the run a little bit? Maybe they're not scoring 40, 42, 30, 38 points a game, but they're going to be competitive. As far as Faison Brandon, I mean, this guy has better press out about him than like a slimy politician, because everything I read is like you're saying, like he's staying back on vacation in the facility. I saw stuff about like his senior year of high school, like he had the playbook and he's grinding that. Right. So super interesting. As you mentioned, beats out McIntyre for the job. Obviously, big arm. I read a ton about that. He's going to make mistakes this year, but I think that's fine. You're going to expect that with the freshmen in the SEC. And honestly, I think that could be a sign that they're having success, because if they're willingly pushing the ball down the field with him, that means they're probably scoring points as well. And then you mentioned the returners on offense. Circling to the defense, Jim Knowles. I don't love the hire. Big thing with Knowles is, and you saw it last year in State College and even his first year at Ohio State, I don't know what it is with the scheme, but it takes time. It takes time to implement it. Typically, year 2, year 3, the Jim Knowles defense comes together. If you look at his first year, Ohio State was not great. Didn't even make it through the year last year, first year in State College. I don't know if that's the hire that you're looking for when you're bringing in a freshman quarterback with kind of the pedigree of Tennessee, typically not great defensively. I don't know if that's the answer. We'll see. Josh Heupel knows better than me. And then you mentioned the Penn State transfers that come over. And then also nickel corner TJ Metcalf from Michigan. Read some good stuff about him. And then last year, as we mentioned, the defense is poor. All 5 losses gave up 30-plus points.
Do you think that bringing over Jim Knowles, though, I know it might take some years to adjust to his scheme. One, maybe he knows that he's got to dumb it down, and maybe from experience. But 2, do you think that having some of those guys from Penn State already over ease that adjustment period? I mean, there's still going to be guys that need to learn it, but having some guys that have already been in it definitely helps, no?
For sure. And I think it's a good point you bring up with maybe him acknowledging that some concepts need to be simpler, and maybe as time goes on, you can start getting exotic with your coverages, your blitzes. Like I remember last year, I don't know if you remember this in the whiteout, Deni Dennis Sutton, he had a pick on like the 2-point conversion. So stuff like that, I don't know. Let your good players do what they do well. Like let him get after the quarterback, things like that. I don't know why I think about that a lot. And then last year, as we went defense bad, 4-4 in the SEC. This year, quite interesting, and I do like this for them. All big games are at home this year. They have Texas week 4. Texas cannot go in there sleepy, because at that point, Tennessee's going to have everything in front of them. They're going to be undefeated. They're going to think that they can make the playoffs, so Texas cannot go in there sleepy. They need to be ready to play. Week 5, Auburn, Alex Golish goes back to Tennessee. As I said, he was Josh Heupel's first ever offensive coordinator, I believe, or one of them. Maybe it was year 2 Heupel. Week 7 Bama. That's I want to say Tennessee's won last 2 against Bama. Kind of a turn of the tide there, no pun intended. And then week 12, Lane Kiffin goes back to Tennessee. So all the big games are at home this year. Don't let Tennessee beat Texas week 4, because at that point everything's in front of them, and we'll see what happens. They do have the sneaky road spots at Arkansas, at South Carolina. We'll see where South Carolina is at that point. Arkansas probably won't be great, but as we mentioned, you can't go in there not ready to play. I have 8-4. I think offensively, Faison Brand, he might struggle early, but he'll figure it out. The talent's terrific. And then I just worry about the Knowles hire. It's been everywhere he's been. Year 1, the defense has been horrible. I don't know if that's what Tennessee needed.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think when you look at Tennessee's schedule, I also believe that they lucked out in a way. I think that Alabama game is going to be critical to them because they did lose to Bama last year. And when you look at Texas and LSU, I think they can pull out a big game there. We split those. I think it's just kind of the more, I would say more rival. I think Bama's probably the biggest rival out of those 3. And they got to take care of business. They got to use that home field to their advantage. I know it's going to be loud in there, and I think that's going to be key. And if that does happen, I mean, this could easily be. I have them as a 9-win team. To be honest, I think they win one of those 2 games and maybe drop another, maybe on the road at some point. So I have them at 9 wins. I think that it could be a pretty successful year for Josh Heupel and Faison Brandon, especially year 1. Got the pieces around him.
Yeah, and then week 2, just real quick, at Georgia Tech, that'll be a nice measuring stick for them, just to kind of see where the young quarterback is before you get into the SEC play with that opening SEC game against Texas.
No doubt. All right, guys, something that I didn't mention at the previous episode, and as we get to the top half of these SEC, we actually got a special guest that is joining us today. And if you are a longtime viewer of the show, I'm talking longtime viewer, last year when we were doing these college football breakdowns, you might remember the SEC truther, Matt Mazzocchi, joined us a couple times. And judging this is an SEC episode, we got to have him on here. I know he's a longtime Bama fan. I'm going to have him introduced whenever he hops on, but I believe he's in the waiting room. We're going to be getting him on here as we go into Alabama, which is going to be our next team, and we continue with the top half of the SEC. But while we're waiting for Matt to join, it's definitely going to be an intriguing year for Alabama because we just got another one that we just found out their quarterback battle is over as Keelan Russell beat out Austin Mack. I think from the vibe that we got throughout camp, it wasn't much of a surprise. However, I mean, Austin Mack has been the guy that's been with DeBoer. He's been the more experienced veteran in a sense. And I don't even think it's a knock on Mack that, like, because he's a pretty high level quarterback. You talk to a lot of guys, at least some of the people that I'm listening to, they believe that he could be an NFL type dude someday. And it's more of just Keelan Russell brings the dynamic ability. He brings a little bit more explosiveness, a little bit more of an edge to this offense. And in an SEC that's filled with dual threat quarterbacks nowadays, I think that's what Kalen DeBoer was looking for. And I think it does add a new layer to this offense. Some of the guys, I guess we could start. I mean, last season, you look at them, they made the college football playoffs, somehow snuck in. That was a very controversial. I didn't think they deserved a playoff spot at 9-3, especially how you looked at the end of the season. And we'll see if our guest here agrees with that take. But all right, guys, Matt is on the show. Matt, welcome. Thank you for joining us as we just started breaking down Alabama. We did a little overview of that. But before we dive in, for the new listeners that haven't been around for a while, just give us a little background. Who are you? SEC truther, as we like to call it. But what should the viewers know before we continue here?
Yeah, my name is, you guys hear me all right?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Sweet. Sounds good. Yep. My name is Matt, SEC truther. I would like to say that the SEC, is the most dominant conference past couple of years, but I think past 3 seasons that's changed my mind. I still think, the SEC is, the best conference when you take the sum of all of its parts, whether that's tradition, environment, coaching staffs. But yeah, I'm an SEC truther, Bama fan, just fan of the sport. Cannot wait for the season to be starting here on Saturday. Cannot wait.
Yeah, it is on the horizon. And so, we mentioned Bama last year, we touched a little bit on the quarterback battle, and just we're going over how they snuck into the playoff. I didn't think they deserved it at 9-3, especially with how that offense was towards the end of the season. You look at them games versus Oklahoma, LSU, Auburn game. They looked just out of sorts, and then they played Georgia the second time. I know they had a big win against them early in the season, but in that SEC championship, they were completely lost, and I thought that's what was going to keep them out. However, committee had some different plans, a little SEC bias in that, especially when you look at Notre Dame or someone getting snubbed. Like, it's just unreal. But anyways, you look, I mean, in the playoff, they did have a big win against Oklahoma, came back a little bit in Norman, which was huge for him, and then got stomped, boat raced by Indiana, 38-3. You had Austin Mack come in. They only had 23 rushing yards in the game, so horrible. I'm assuming they're coming in this year with a little bit of revenge on their mind, in a sense, from getting blown out like that. They had 10 guys get drafted, including Caden Proctor, Ty Simpson, Jeremy Bernard. They also had some key defensive guys that are not on the team anymore, like Justin Jefferson, linebacker, Damani Jackson at corner, LT Overton as well. Head coach Kalen DeBoer is going on his third season, just signed an extension through 2033. So Alabama clearly likes him. I know that there was some buzz that maybe he'd take the Michigan job. Is he going to say that?
Penn State.
No. Penn State too? Okay. But no, he's back. Ryan Grubb's back also at offensive coordinator. And I mean, to touch on their defense really quick, I think they have one of the best secondaries in the nation. I know that Bray Hubbard, I had him as a top 10 defensive player in the country. Over Matt, I remember you text me saying that he's not even the best DB on their team. So I'd like to get your
Correct.
take on that. And we touched already on the quarterback battle. So Matt, however you want to start, you want to talk about the quarterback? What's your take on Keelan Russell, or do you want to stay on the defensive side? What are you looking out for Bama this? Let's start with the quarterback battle. So what are your thoughts? Do you think Keelan Russell is well deserved there over Austin Mack?
Yeah, 100%. I don't know. Again, just joined here, wasn't watching live or anything, so I don't know where you guys started, but I feel like the obvious place to start is the Keelan Russell, highest rated Bama recruit ever. And you have to think about all the talent that has come through Alabama. I mean, you think the raw prospects, Julio Jones, you think Derrick Henry, you think Will Anderson, you think Bryce Young. No, Keelan Russell is the highest ever. And that's just mind-blowing. It really is tough to think about, especially, like I said, with all the talent that's run through Alabama. And that just leads to the potential that's obviously there for Keelan Russell. And I think it obviously was a close battle. I think Austin Mack very easily could have played quarterback for Alabama this season, and I think they would have done just fine with him there. But again, it's just the potential. And I think the big thing that you don't really like to say as a coach, but the big thing that's there is giving Keelan Russell the keys to the program this season allows him to have this year to develop, as well as next year as well. You know, you have him starting in the lineup, getting used to the system this year. He's going to be a redshirt freshman, because he redshirted last year. Last year was his true freshman year. As well as a bunch of other, early in their career guys on the offense. I mean, you got Mal Waldrop at left guard. You got Michael Carroll, who's going to be there the year after as well. You got a lot of young receivers in the receiving room. Derek Meadows, Latsier Brooks, Sadarian Morgan, true freshman. It just gives these guys a chance to gel. And it's, like I said, especially moving forward to next season, if you didn't start Keelan Russell, there's a chance he transfers out. And, it's tough. Austin Mack, he's a great quarterback, described as, the human playbook from his teammates. But I think Kalen DeBoer realizes that the seat's starting to get hot, and he's got to make business decisions, even though, Austin Mack stuck with him from his time at Washington, graduated early. But yeah, I think it was the right decision, 100%.
Mm-hmm. And then
Matt, real quick,
Sam,
I just want to bring this up because you touched on DeBoer. More wins in his first two seasons than Nick Saban, but the seat's hot. Could you kind of touch on that, what you think about Kalen DeBoer? Obviously made the SEC championship last year, made the college football playoff, and won a game on the road. Do you think that's just? Is that like a rational perspective for the seat to be hot for him?
Yeah, like you said, I mean, he's made the SEC championship, but the standard at Alabama is championships. You come there to win championships, and if you're not winning championships, the chatter is going to start getting louder and louder and louder. I'm not saying, oh, he loses games this season, he's out, but the Bama Gumps, they're going to start coming if they're not winning games, and if they're not back in the playoffs, making a shot at the title. Yes, the seat is going to get warmer and warmer, and it's one of those jobs that you have to be comfortable with the seat being warm. That's just the nature of the job. He came into that job knowing that he was going to be hearing it from the Bama faithful, and I think he's the right man for the job. I really do, but yeah, I think it's not out of the question to say like, oh, the seat's starting to get warm, especially with the losses that you just can't be having as at Alabama. You cannot be losing to Vanderbilt 2 years ago after beating Georgia. You're on top of the world, highest highs, mountaintop to the depths of Death Valley after losing to Vanderbilt last year, starting the season at Florida State. Those are just losses you cannot be having as a program. Those are almost season altering. It did alter the season 2 years ago. They got held out of the playoff. They got snubbed by SMU. So those are just losses that you cannot have. And I guess we'll touch a little bit on that as well. A couple scenarios with Kentucky at Mississippi State. Those are similar situations where it's like, hey, unranked teams, but you're not bringing your A game, you're not prepared. You never know. Any given Saturday.
Yeah, I think their toughest game is honestly, obviously Georgia, hosting Georgia, but at Tennessee, as we touched on, that's going to be the one that they need to lock in, because I know they host Texas A&M, but we'll also get into, I'm not really high on Texas A&M, but I think that Tennessee game is going to be one of their toughest tests, and I would say, especially with a young quarterback going into that type of environment. That's the toughest road game, I would say. Maybe LSU now, but
that 4-game stretch is brutal. Georgia,
it really is. Jeez.
In Knoxville, A&M, at LSU.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think just want to jump in. Sam, what you said is what you're hearing all over social media. Like, oh, we're not really worried about Texas A&M. We got to really lock in on Georgia, at Tennessee, at LSU. I'd almost argue that the Texas A&M is the sneakiest one and the one outside of Georgia that they could lose the most. That Texas A&M game, it reminds me a lot of the Oklahoma game last year where they lost 23-21 at home. Oklahoma was off a bye. They caught them sleeping. I think that was, I forget what Bama was doing the week before, but it's a very similar situation. Texas A&M, they play a FCS school the week before, so essentially a tune-up match. They don't have a game after the Bama game, so it's going to be all-out preparation. Marcel Reed, Mike Elko, they're going to be coming in hot. But Bama's got to protect the crib. It's homecoming week, I think, that week for them. And, 2 losses this decade at home. And I don't know. I'd like to say they're not going to get number 3 this year, but that Georgia game's going to be tough for sure.
Mm-hmm. Do you guys got anything else to add on Bama before we move on? I know that we got some of the other.
I would say, yeah, I don't know how in depth you want me to go, but I'd say the biggest question mark for sure around Bama is the run game, and I would say that I think I've pulled it up here somewhere. Yeah, the 125th rushing attack out of 138. That's just abysmal last year in 2025. You got teams I'm looking at the list right now: FAU, Maryland, Purdue, Delaware. They all ran the ball better than Alabama last year. That's insane. Nick Saban would be having them run gassers every day, but week in, week out, it's oh, Bama can't run the ball. Yet they kept finding a way to win. They won a playoff game, like you said. So that run game's a real, question mark going into this season. I think the biggest thing there is the offensive line. Caden Proctor, Parker Brailsford obviously got drafted. But we lost a lot of other people on the offensive line as well. I think Cam Dewberry, undrafted free agent. Not sure he's going to make a 53-man roster. Wilcom Forby, he went to A&M. So it's a whole new offensive line, and I really think they can't be playing, musical chairs at offensive line this season. That's what they were doing all last season. Ryan Grubb was oh, let's try out Dewberry at right guard, Vandermark at left guard, and let's switch it around. Michael Carroll can go to right tackle. Actually, now right guard. Just stick with 5. I think they have their 5 set right now. Just don't be playing hot potato. Let these guys, really gel together as a unit. I mean, it's not a lack of talent. There's no way that it's a lack of talent, neither at the offensive line nor in the running back room. I think there's so much talent there. And then I think without a question, if that's something they focus on this offseason, that can dramatically improve. And the good thing about it being 125th is it can't get worse. It really can't. So if you get even a marginal improvement in the run game, I mean, could you imagine how much more potent that offense is going to be? Especially with Keelan Russell. I feel like if he is even a fraction of what we're hearing he is, that'll be a dangerous offense, no doubt.
Run game was second to last in the SEC as well, which when I saw that, I was like, no way. And then I did see they hired a new O-line coach, Adrian Clem, NFL pedigree. I don't know if you want to touch on that at all.
Not a whole lot. I mean, I'm hearing great things about Adrian Clem, their tight end coach. I forget his name, but I know they've been working a lot hand in hand. A lot of good things about the tight ends, Marshall Pritchett, Caleb Edwards, Josh Ford, I think, and Jay Lindsey. I think all those guys could see some playing time. They're all really getting better at blocking, and it's something that, it's like I said, it's not a talent thing. It's more of a technique thing. And I think back to 2024, one of Bama's biggest problems was penalties. And then I think they were like bottom 10 percentile. And then going into 2025, I think they were, top 85th percentile for penalties allowed. So that's another technique thing. So I think technique-wise, they could really focus on it this offseason. You could really see some dramatic improvements throughout that, no doubt in my mind. And then last thing, and then we'll move on, is like, gotta stay healthy. Gotta stay healthy. Like you said, the SEC championship, I was holding my breath. I'm like, they're about to lead Bama out because they're getting steamrolled here. I think if Bama could have opted out of that game, it sounds terrible, but like, they would have. I don't think they were healthy whatsoever. I don't think they wanted to field a team. I think they were content, being in the playoffs. They needed to get healthy. And even already, we're seeing injuries pop up. Jeremiah Beeman came out today, he tore his ACL. A.K. Deere, he's going to be out a little bit. Noah Rogers, he's getting back from an injury right now. Latsir Brooks in a boot. So, I mean, not a great start, but, I mean, as they always say, availability is your best ability, right? So.
Definitely. All right, just for the sake of timing, though, since we got a handful of teams to get through as well, we wanted to take a little more time on Bama, though, of course, is to talk about the Tide. I think our next team, and Joe, I'm going to let you do the little high overview on them, as I noticed my laptop's got some batteries, so I got to plug this in real quick. But let's go to Texas A&M. So last season, I got kind of a hot take on them. I know we mentioned in the Bama game why I'm not really super high in them. Joe, if you want to start by just giving a little high level overview of what happened last season with them, and maybe some their coaching.
Yeah,
I would say
for sure. I think the big thing in like this year in College Station, is just highlighting that A&M's no longer sneaking up on people. Mike Elko first 2 years, year 1, 8 games, win the bowl game, and then last year, obviously they go 11-2. They were undefeated until the last game, where Texas got them, and then they lose that ugly game at home to Miami. But the Mike Elko hire was a home run when you look at A&M coming out of the Jimbo Fisher era. That was a mess. When you talk about the guy they needed, someone who's going to instill that culture, and I think Mike Elko already has through year 2. Obviously, Marcel Reed. I forgot, but last year was his second year as the starter, right?
I think so. I think so.
I didn't know that. So if he's going into year 3, it is time for him to take the next step. I forget who I saw talking about this, but I thought it was really accurate. A&M needs to win games because of Marcel Reed at some point, and especially when you're thinking about this year. Like I said, they're no longer like sneaking up on people. Obviously, College Station's a tough place to play, but now they're kind of in that upper echelon with the premier teams in the SEC. So there needs to be games this year where maybe the defense isn't as sharp, and they win some games because of Marcel Reed. This year, new offensive coordinator, Holman Wiggins. He was the wide receiver coach last year. I believe they lost their coordinator to K-State. and Colin Klein took him with him.
Right.
No, Colin Klein was the coordinator and took K-State. So we'll see. I did read that the new OC plans to have Marcel Reed utilize his legs a lot more, which I don't necessarily hate because I'm not the highest on Marcel Reed.
I need to.
Yeah, I want to say 12 picks last year. So that's got to be cut down. 4 new starters on the O-line, bunch of transfers. There's 2 LSU guys and then a Bama guy, right?
Welcome Forby, and then Isaiah Horton also transfer receiver, probably get some playing time as well.
Yeah.
Let me jump in. Let me jump in about Marcel Reed while we're on him real quick, because I think you look at him last year. Did he have some insane games that make you think that he's a Heisman candidate 100%? But the more we watch him, the more you just wanted to throw up at how fucking atrocious he was. And you look at it like his last 2 games of the season versus Texas and Miami, the 2 best teams that they played, 0 touchdowns, 4 picks, and 8 sacks. Even in Notre Dame, their biggest win that season, he had a 45% completion percentage against ND. Let's face it, they got lucky at the end of the game. Like, I don't know. Yes, he had 3,100 yards, 25 touchdowns. I even look at something like the South Carolina game. You watch him in that first half, some horrible interceptions. Came back in the second half, dialed it in. I don't know what flipped at halftime. But my point is, he's not even a roller coaster. It's more of like, I mean, when you're on a roller coaster and you're describing a player, like, I don't know, what's like the best part? Probably going down. It's more of like you're on a roller coaster, just like going down 80% of the time with like some 20% like reason. Might be a horrible analogy, but my point is I'm not really high on Marcel Reed at all. He's so inconsistent, very inaccurate at times. Maybe he worked on a lot of stuff this offseason and he can be better. I mean, there's a reason he forwent the NFL draft, because I don't think there was a team that really wanted to pick him. But I don't know. You also look at Texas A&M. I thought they had a really Mickey Mouse schedule last year. I mean, they didn't have to play Ole Miss, Bama, Georgia, or Vanderbilt, or Oklahoma, or Tennessee. I mean, the only team that they really played in the top half of the conference was Texas, and they lost by 10 there. So I know their defense was pretty good, but they also lost what? They got 4. So I guess their defense are bringing a lot of guys, but they had a program record. I don't know if you touched on this, Joe, but they had a program record of 10 guys drafted. Okay, 4 offensive line got drafted. Cassius Howell, their edge rusher, second rounder to the Bengals. Casey Concepcion was a first round pick. Obviously, he's on the Browns now. They are returning Mario Craver, who's probably one of the better wide receivers in the SEC, but I don't know, man. It's just like a lot of people are hyping them up as like one of the top end teams. I just don't know. They got a lot. They have a lot of upside, but when they start facing, I don't have their schedule. Some of the top teams that they face, it's just like I don't know how you can trust them in big games, especially Marcel Reed there.
I mean, they beat the big bad Notre Dame though. I mean that they were a gauntlet last.
Yeah, okay, they did beat them, but oh my, some of the fucking penalties. I mean, even the 4th down, like when they were at the goal line, it was a bullshit penalty from my memory. Like I know it was a bullshit penalty that happened at some point. And it took like the first 3. I mean, it was like 1st and goal, 2nd and goal, 3rd and goal. It was just horrible by Marcel Reed. And then he throws up a fucking prayer to his tight end and he comes down with it. I don't know. And Notre Dame kind of sold that game way more than Texas A&M won it. And things were not going their way.
A&M also played Miami super close, who also took Indiana to the Natty though as well. I mean, you have to remember that was
their defense. I mean, they should. I mean, they're at home, College Station, tough environment. Like,
I think Mark Fletcher, if he breaks that like what 60-yard run, he doesn't break that big run. Like A&M maybe wins that game. Who's to say A&M doesn't go on a run? I mean,
yeah, but you're talking Marcel Reed. He's supposed to be this really dual threat guy. He took 7 sacks. 7 sacks.
Yeah. I will jump in. I'm gonna cherry pick a stat here that I forget who said it. It was one of the guys who's in college football every day. Joe, I know you mentioned losing 4 starting O-linemen. Obviously, Le'Veon Moss gone, Casey Concepcion gone. They had the 30th ranked rushing attack last year. 17 of Marcel Reed's 25 touchdowns came off play action last year, as well as he had 12 interceptions. Only one of those interceptions was off of play action. So with that O-line shuffling up, this is where I'll be like, hey, what's going on with A&M this year? They got a lot of new faces on the offensive line. Can they establish that rushing attack that Marcel Reed really benefits from? That's going to be my biggest question. It's going to be a question mark all year long. I do think, Mike Elko's got it figured out though there. I think they'll be in the hunt. No doubt in my mind.
Just real
Yeah.
quick, Sam. Like I feel like when we were in Matt before you joined, it's like we're going through schedules, and it's like there's no such thing as a weak schedule in the SEC. Well, last year for A&M there was, because like literally after Notre
They
Dame,
played one team in the top half.
yeah, but like even some of the spots where like it's like Auburn, Florida, they got both of them at home, but like you expect them to be pesky. Both of their coaches got fired like shortly after. At LSU, they got Brian Kelly fired, so like they just caught all these teams at the right points. And then as you mentioned, like Texas at the end, they only lost by 10. I feel like Texas just dominated that football game.
I will say the LSU win was a pretty good win. I did not expect them to win. I will
They
give
blitzed
credit
them.
to I
That's
will
fair.
give credit to
It
Marcel
was a
Reed. He
rout.
was electric there.
It was a rout.
Yeah, I'll give that team credit there. I don't know. I just feel like they're more of a middle of the pack team instead of. I mean, a lot of people are just penciling them into the playoff at this point. I don't know. I don't agree with
Absolutely not. And the way they end this year, in Tuscaloosa, at South Carolina, Tennessee at home, at like in Norman, and then they get Texas at home this year. That's a brutal end. And win total, Sam, do you know this? Because I would just want to see what you think it would be.
that. Win total is probably 8.5.
8.5. That'd be me.
Which I
guess.
just don't get. Like under. It's got to be. I don't see it this year with A&M, and I think Colin Klein's a massive loss as well.
Yeah. All right. For the sake of time, let's move on to the next team. So we're now on. Hang in there, guys. We're on to our top 5 teams in the SEC, and we're going to start with the Oklahoma Sooners, who last season went 10-3. They lost the first round of the college football playoff to Bama, where they blew that early lead. I would say lost to Ole Miss and Texas throughout the regular season as well. Who'd they lose to the draft? They lost 7 guys. Their biggest one was R. Mason Thomas, the defensive end. They're really big time defensive end. He went to the Chiefs. They also lost linebacker Kendall Daniels, Grayson Holton on the D line. And from the transfer portal, Michael Hawkins, their backup quarterback, as we talked in the ACC preview, is now in West Virginia. If you think that's notable, depending on John Mateer's health. Who do they add, though? In the transfer portal, they got wide receiver Terrell Harris, who I think is going to be a pretty big-time addition. He came over from Virginia. He was an all-ACC receiver. They also got tight end Hayden Hansen from Florida, linebacker Cole Sullivan from Michigan. And then, of course, we talked about earlier, wide receiver Parker Livingstone, who came over from Texas, went to his rival school. So it's going to be interesting how that dynamic works, especially in the Red River Showdown, Red River Rivalry, whatever you want to call it. Head coach Brett Venables, he's going on his 5th season. He actually just signed a 6-year extension yesterday or 2 days ago after he led Oklahoma to the first college football playoff since 2019. They're still 0-5, though, in the playoffs, so that's something to know. I think big thing for Oklahoma this season, their defense is still going to be a top 5 unit. Guys like David Stone, Taylor Wine on the defensive front, they're really good there. It's going to come down, is John Mateer going to be healthy or not? He's definitely should be healthy, right? Although I looked at some of the clips from him this summer, even at the Manning Passing Academy, I saw something just his throwing motion doesn't look like it was the first half of last year. So I don't know if there's something lingering still with his hand or whatever it was, or there's something else, because he's got a lot of wide receiver core. I mean, with Parker Livingstone, I'm forgetting the other guy. Oh, Terrell Harris, like I said.
Is Satania back too?
Yeah, Satania. So Satania is also there. He should probably be their number 1 guy. And even, I mean, the running back room, they didn't bring anyone else. I thought that was also one of their struggles last. So it's going to be Torrey Blaylock and Xavier Robinson. So we'll see how the rushing game goes. But at the end of the day, John Mateer was playing like a Heisman candidate the first 3-4 weeks of the year. Can he get back to that form? Because if he is, then Oklahoma is a national title contender.
Yeah. And I mean, you kind of touched on it, but last year they ended up at a point where John Mateer couldn't throw the football and they couldn't run the football, and they were just kind of operating with these random big plays. And if you look at the end of the season, they won 2 games, scoring 17 points, and they're kind of just holding on. So that's the big question. And then the other thing to highlight would be Brett Venables maybe saved his job last year. If this year goes south, is he back on the hot seat? Because things weren't great in Norman. And I guess the good start kind of kept him alive. Because as you said, like as I said, the way they ended last year was ugly, and the offense was terrible. It was just they did have these random clutch plays. Remember the LSU game? I forget. It was a big explosive play. I forget who it was.
Screen, right? It was a screen.
Yeah.
Is that the one you're talking? Or maybe not. But I just remember Oklahoma squeaked out at LSU.
Yeah. And Mizzou as well. So we'll see. Defense returns a ton of guys. And then Cortland Gilroy. He's younger, but he could be the best player in the unit.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Matt, you got anything to add there?
Not too much to say. I am a fan of Brett Venables, Ben Arbuckle. I think, Oklahoma's kind of like a chaos team. If it's controlled chaos, they're really intimidating to play. I think the Palace on the Prairie is one of the best venues in the sport. I love Norman as a town. I think, again, it's super intimidating, but if that controlled chaos gets out of hand, then the wheels kind of come off the bus. But if they can keep it controlled, that defense is scary. Brent Venables is one of the best minds in the game. I think Brent Arbuckle, he had something going. Again, I feel like you said, Sam, kind of depends on, is John Mateer healthy? Because we saw what the result could be if he is. It's dangerous. But Oklahoma, yeah, it'll be interesting to watch this year for sure.
They're going to be interesting because let me tell you, they got to get off to a hot start because I'm telling you, they are not beating Georgia at Georgia. They are not beating Texas. I think Texas is the best team in the country, or at least top three in a sense. So they need to get off to a hot start and go to the Big House and beat Michigan. They have to. And that's a tough game for them. I don't know if they could pull it out, especially with how, they had them last year. I feel like Michigan's a bit more well-rounded, especially on defense. New head coach there. Bryce Underwood in his second season. It's going to be a tough game. So they got to lock in from the get-go because, they open up at UTEP. It's basically a preseason game right there. You'd probably be better doing a freaking practice inter-squad game, but they got to get out to a hard start with Michigan because I know a lot of people are they're not really paying attention to that game because it's all week 2 is pretty much highlighted by Ohio State, Texas. But it's like, no, Oklahoma, Michigan's like, that's probably the biggest outside of Ohio State, Texas. That's the biggest out of conference game for any SEC team, right? I don't think I'm forgetting anyone. So they got to get a hot start.
Clemson LSU is pretty big, but
yeah, but I don't know. I'm still taking Oklahoma, Michigan. From a seed standpoint, I think Clemson. We'll see. Maybe Clemson. I know a lot of people are high on Dabo, especially the AP poll. They had Clemson in it, right? Or did they? I don't know.
Yeah, they did.
So yeah, a lot of people are high.
It might have been the coaches. It was one of the two.
It was the coaches.
Yeah.
It was the coaches, right?
Yeah.
So, all right. So with that, I think that we're good on Oklahoma. Let's go to LSU. Lane Kiffin, LSU. So last season they went 7-6. Brian Kelly was fired after that. Texas A&M lost. And they brought in Lane Kiffin, the whole controversy. We talked about it before. We had a whole episode. Actually, our first podcast episode that me and Joe did, we did a little deep dive into Lane Kiffin coming to LSU. So you guys should go listen to that if you want a little more info on that whole controversy. But last season for LSU, their defense was top 30, right? They did lose their secondary. They lost 2 big time players. Mansour Delane, he went 6th overall to the Kansas City Chiefs. And then they also lost AJ Halsey, their safety. He went to the Colts in the 3rd round. They lost Harold Perkins, 2 wide receivers in Xavier Thomas and Barry and Brown in the draft. Their biggest portal loss was, if you can call this a loss, is Carius Kern. He went to Ole Miss and he's going to be their backup right tackle. So they didn't lose much to the portal. However, in the portal, they were a top 5 class in recruiting wise and who they gained. It was the team of the offseason, right? Not even just Lane Kiffin, but bringing over quarterback Sam Levitt. You brought over offensive tackle Jordan Seaton from Colorado, probably the best tackle offensive lineman in the class. And yeah, they also got Prince. I was preparing his name all day, so hopefully I get it right. Prince Emmanuel. Prince Will Emmanuel, one of the toughest names. I fuck up names a lot, but that's one of the toughest ones. Edge rusher from Ole Miss, he's in the building. So they got a lot of guys there. A lot of talent is being brought in. And my whole point is with Lane Kiffin, there is no time to get adjusted. No time. You got it is national championship from day one, especially with all the buzz and all these LSU fans. They don't got time to be patient. That's what we're paying you the big bucks. You're supposed to be the top coach in the entire country right now. So there's no time. You got to start by getting off to Clemson. That needs to be a 20-point victory. I'm sorry. It needs to be. I think they're a 10-point favorite right now. You got to stop Clemson. You can't, especially in Death Valley with that environment, you got to stop them. Especially with all the talent you got. They retained defensive, also, good thing to note is that they retained defensive coordinator Blake Baker. I thought that their defense last year was top 30. And like I mentioned, they're also safety Deshaun Spears is a guy to highlight in that defensive room as well. I know I was kind of all over the place there. Joe or Matt, where do you want to take it from there? I know their offensive's got maybe Sam Levitt. We could touch a little more about him and some of the weapons that they brought in as well, or even retained.
Yeah. I mean, you mentioned the team of the offseason. I think kind of similar to when we were discussing Texas Tech last week, and how last year everything just went perfect for them in terms of how all the pieces fit. That's kind of where I'm at with LSU, because like the talent's just ridiculous, and I think Charlie Weiss coming with Lane Kiffin is kind of like an underrated move as well. The combination of that with Blake Baker staying, I'm kind of talking myself into things going well because you look at it on paper, it's like they can beat anyone. I don't know if you mentioned like Chase Brown, Eugene Wilson, we mentioned earlier. There's the kid from Old Dominion.
Chase Brown, Trey Harris is the ODU guy, right? Or Jackson Harris as well. I don't know if you mentioned him.
Yeah, there's a wide receiver from Old Dominion who's real good. And then Trades Green comes back. And then is Daquan Wright just is he not coming now?
Yeah, so I heard that they put a ban on coaches that are allowing them. So I think he's not welcome. At least from the latest report that came out today. So
okay.
I guess he's not back. But even
right.
if he was back, it's like, how much was he really gonna? I mean, I know they're thin behind Trades Green, but Trades Green is the best tight end in college football.
Correct.
So I don't know. That's why my whole debate was like, why Daquan Wright? Like, why would you even want to come back? Because you're kind of embarrassing yourself from a sense where everyone is ripping on you. Like literally, entire national media, everybody on Twitter is ripping this move to go back to college. I know he's probably making some money off the NIL, but is it really worth it? I don't know. So
yeah,
that's my take on that.
And then the gimmick like little interview that he did with Pat McAfee. So like I don't know, like make it seem like
did he hop on Pat McAfee's show?
Lane Kiffin did.
Oh,
like,
Lane Kiffin. Okay, I thought you were talking about
yeah.
right,
And then like I think it was like 4 hours later, the SEC put the thing out where it's like they responded to the Big Ten saying we're not doing this. But yeah, the talent's unreal. For Jordan Seaton and Prince Will, I'm not going to say his last name. They were two best players in the portal, like right up there. So they get them both. Sam Levitt, obviously.
Sam Levitt was the number one player in the portal, right? And then Jordan Seaton, from the offensive line was number one, and then
talent's ridiculous. And then obviously all eyes on week 3 when Lane Kiffin goes back to Oxford, probably the game of the season, at least at this point. So we'll see. And then the sneaky spot, like we talked about A&M being like a sneaky spot. They have A&M the week after. So that's a spot to highlight. They have Texas, they have Bama, Tennessee. So schedule's tough. But I feel like I've said this 3 times, but another super intriguing team.
So I want to ask you this, Matt, too, as well. To stay on this backfield, I think the dynamic from Sam Levitt and his running backs are going to be huge. I mean, I talked about it as well before a lot of times. I love Sam Levitt at Arizona State. He's got a dog. He just brings a lot of rushing ability to the offense, and he's also got that clutch gene, especially in their playoff run. A lot of people want to place it all on Cam Skadaboo. No, Sam Levitt, the way that he was able to run the read option, I would say, and also just sling it deep was really impressive. I think he's got Heisman potential, and he's the 3rd best quarterback in the SEC. However, from a running back standpoint, so LSU's bringing back Caden Durham. He was probably their lead back last season. However, I saw that all the buzz throughout camp, and Lane Kiffin's actually been praising him a lot, is running back Dylan Jones, and he's from Wisconsin. So Matt here is a Wisconsin alum. What can you tell us about Dylan Jones?
He split with a back at Wisconsin last year. I mean, I think he had like 300 yards, and he was definitely in a committee. He wasn't like a clear RB1, like a JT, like a Melvin Gordon by any means. And yeah, Wisconsin brought in Abu Sama from Iowa State. The room just got too large. He actually might have entered before Abu Sama came over, but yeah, I saw that and it kind of shocked me. And neither of you brought this up yet, but Bama was 125th out of 138th in FBS. LSU was 126th in rushing game, and
yeah, they were bad.
Yeah, it's kind of a unstoppable force versus a movable wall because Lane Kiffin, he likes to run the ball, he likes to establish the run, and I think LSU's offensive line is probably going to be the biggest question. I think that defense is elite, no question about it. So uh, with Dylan Jones kind of unproven, obviously, big things out of camp, but again, like 300 yards. Um, I mean, I knew who he was, but it wasn't like, oh, wow, this guy's a real loss when he hit the portal. So it just kind of
Yeah.
shocks me. And I know, going from Kewan Lacey to Dylan Jones, I'd say there is a pretty sizable gap there. The other thing that, about LSU, I think they have all the talent in the world, but they got 60 new players on the roster. I mean, how quickly, I know, Sam, you mentioned it's national championship or bust. How quickly is he going to be able to gel this team? I know Sam Levitt missed some spring ball. Um, you got to be ready from week one, and there might be some kinks that need to be ironed out here. Like, that's a very real possibility. I mean, 60 new players. We're not taking the college basketball route here, where Michigan brings in Ade Mara, they bring in the player from UAB, who's player of the year. They bring in guy
Variance
from
Johnson.
Illinois. Yeah, I mean, we're not playing college basketball here. This is a team sport. You got 11 on each side of the ball.
Listen. That's why you paid Lane Kiffin $91 million. That's why he's making $13 million a year to get these guys ready to play week one.
We'll see.
I mean, that's all it comes down to. They need I don't know how it's going to happen, but that is why LSU is paying Lane Kiffin all this money.
I would love to see it happen. I think it would be great for the sport. I just think it's a tall ask. That's all I'm going to say. 60 new players from transfer portal and freshmen. I think that's going to be tough to get them to gel, especially right off the get-go. And but yeah, like you guys said, all the talent in the world. They got Whit Weeks coming back, DJ Pickett. I know they got two, interior D linemen, true freshmen that are going to make instant impacts. I forget their name. Anderson and Gerard, maybe.
Lamar Brown, Richard Anderson.
Yeah, that sounds right. I've heard big things about them, but they got so much going on, both off the field, that like it's hard to imagine what's going to be going on the field. There's just so much going on at LSU. It's just going to be such an interesting story to see play out this season. It's going to be exciting for sure.
Yeah, I can't wait to watch them. So we're going to be at the opening game versus Clemson, or at least I will. And yeah, I can't wait to see that environment and see how they react, or at least Lane Kiffin reacts to his first game. All right, let's go to Lane Kiffin's ex school with the next on our list, and that is Ole Miss. Now, last year they finished it was a magical season, right? 11-1 in the regular season, first college football playoff in school history, and this was all after Lane Kiffin left. I mean, and once he left, and I was one of those guys, I didn't really expect much out of him, but here they are going to the semifinal. They beat Tulane in the first round, they upset Georgia, and then lost to Miami in the final seconds. They were in it every step of the way. They finished the season ranked third in the country. I think when you look at who they lost and who they gained entering 2026, so I mean, first thing they lost, and that's probably a big thing we should have mentioned with Clemson. So they got LSU added offensive coordinator Charlie Weiss Jr. from Ole Miss, so they lost their offensive coordinator along with their head coach. Who else did they lose to the draft? They lost Dejon Stribling, who's gaining a lot of buzz right now on the 49ers. So they lost him. They lost Jaden Williams on offensive tackle to the Cardinals. They also lost Prince. I'm just going to say Princewell to LSU that also went, and then they also TJ Daugherty was another linebacker that's not going to be there anymore. Princewell was the only guy on their team to register more than 6 sacks last season, so I think the edge rusher is going to be kind of a question mark for me. I know they got Blake Purchase from Oregon, some guy from Nevada named Jonathan Maldonado. He had a pretty successful season. So those would be 2 guys to watch on the defensive side. When we talk about this offense right now, and their new OC is going to be John David Baker. He was at East Carolina last season. I believe he had some experience in Ole Miss before 2022, 2023. So it'll be interesting to see how he runs this offense without Lane Kiffin, because I feel like even at the end of last season, it was still like a product of Lane. Now it's not. Now it's kind of merged into whatever John David Baker really wants, and I'm assuming that he's still going to lean into what worked last season with Trinidad. And to stay on Trinidad quarterback, I was never high on him. I mean, Joe says the hate on Trinidad needs to stop here.
It's crazy.
However, one thing I want to mention right now is we're talking about all these NFL players that are going back into college. So let's talk about Trinidad Chambliss. Okay, he's going on his 6th year, right? I mean, he just turned 24 years old. And I did a little research into how he's even coming back. So he won his appeal for extra year of eligibility because he basically got strep throat his sophomore season at Ferris State, and he tried to advocate like a medical redshirt for that. But I could be wrong. I could be going on a limb here. I believe it was because at Ferris State he redshirted his freshman year, and then his sophomore year, Ferris State had a guy that was also like fucking 24 years old going on his 6th year that was like led the conference in like passing yards. So he wasn't even going to play his sophomore year. So instead, he says he advocated toward the judge that he had strep throat and sleep apnea, and he needed a medical pass for that. I don't know. To me, it sounds like he didn't play because he wasn't their starting quarterback, and he's just going to get an extra year of eligibility for that. Whole interesting concept. There's definitely some more to the story. That's just kind of what I pulled. But anyways, like he's back there, so I guess you can't hate. He's got to ride with it. I don't know. I just feel like a lot of times last season it was kind of there was a reason Lane Kiffin didn't start him to start the year. He thought Austin Simmons was the better quarterback, and I feel like when you contain Trinidad in the pocket, he struggles a lot, especially with the accuracy. But when teams blitz him and get off his spot, he's able to roll out. That's where he's completely dangerous. So I'm wondering if we're going to see a shift from these defenses in the SEC this season to make an effort on containing him in the pocket, forcing him to try to step up and throw with anticipation over the middle. I think that's where you'll see him struggle. That's my take there.
I would just, you hit most of it. Was the Trinidad? I guess you didn't disrespect him this time, but I didn't know that about his redshirt exception. That's kind of interesting. Did have nearly 4,000 passing yards last year, 30 total touchdowns. I think the guy's just a gamer. But defensively, you didn't mention Luke Farrelly, linebacker from Cal.
Yeah, you can go over the personnel. I was just staying on Trinidad, but if you want to go over touch on the some of the.
I was just going to hit Luke Farrelly and then
Okay.
Will Eccles
Yeah.
returning. But Luke Farrelly, lot of good buzz out of him coming out of Oxford. Interesting, like just looking at how last year went, they just won a ton of close games, especially early on. Kentucky, 1-score game. Arkansas, 1-score game. The LSU win was tight. Sam, I think that's when we were at the Whiteout. I remember we were watching that. And then the week after, Washington State came to town, and they won by 3. And then Oklahoma was a tight one as well. So they just won a ton of close games. Can they repeat that? We'll see. Obviously, they lose Lane and Charlie Weiss. So we'll see. And then week 1 this year is just fascinating with Louisville, a team who's a lot of people think they can make the playoff out of the ACC. So that's just an early test. And then week 3 is Lane coming back to town. So I guess we'll find out kind of early where Ole Miss is. Yeah, that's all I really got.
Yeah, that week 3 game is definitely the most anticipated game of the season. And one thing I just want to mention too on offense, I mean, their offense should be good. I mean, you got the number 2 back in the country. I think I would still put him on a Hardy over him, but Kejuan Lacey, absolute stud, home run hitter, electric when he hits the open field and can just take off. I also want to mention, like, some people might be questioning their wide receiver room. I mean, there's not a lot of like big names out there, but I think Deuce Alexander is a good breakout candidate for him. Last 2 seasons, he's had just like I think it was 600 yards combined. But look at some of his tape, just like from a contested catch standpoint, very impressive. And Ole Miss does have a history of developing some stud wide receivers. I mean, Stribling was the guy in the draft this year, but AJ Brown, DK Metcalf, Elijah Moore, Jonathan Mingo, like they always find guys in their wide receiver room. So I don't think that's going to be a problem. And yeah, like you said on defense, the week 1 game versus Louisville, by the way, I think Louisville upsets. I'm not gonna lie. I think Louisville comes out and shocks them. Hopefully they're not overlooking that. Hopefully they don't have Lane Kiffin on their mind yet, because Louisville week 1 is going to surprise them. It's a neutral game in Nashville, and I like what Jeff Rome's got cooking over there. So that's probably maybe the tightest game. I mean, Clemson LSU for sure, but like tight game wise, I think that's like the most like spread wise and also ranked teams wise. It's gonna be a good one on Sunday night there. So. All right, I guess with that, we can move on to the top 2 teams in the conference, the ones that we've all been waiting for. We finally made it. almost we're approaching 2 hours on the show. So if you guys are still listening, make sure you hit that subscribe button. I'm already stuttering. That's how late it's getting. But hit that subscribe button. Hit the like button before we get into Georgia and Texas. And we're going to start with Georgia. Or should we start with Texas? That's a big debate that's going on right now. We're starting with Georgia because I believe Texas is the number one team in the conference, but there's a lot of argument there. It's like, how can you put Texas over Georgia when Georgia's beaten them the last 3 years? I know Josh Pate's big about that. It's like, how can I rank Georgia over Texas? I am still, because I think Texas, that's what we'll get to. You'll see why. But let's stay on Georgia, okay? Not to disrespect Georgia at all. They were 12-1 last season, with their only loss being at Alabama at home, in which they avenged that loss in a big way in the SEC Championship, 28-7 victory. In the college football playoff, they lost the Sugar Bowl quarterfinal to Ole Miss, 39-34. What a like insane game, right? One of the better college football playoff games we've seen ever, I would say. And Trinidad Chambliss, like we said, give him some credit, because he pressured Kirby Smart into making some aggressive decisions, and that was kind of the demise of Georgia in that game. You look at their regular season. I mean, they did have big wins over Ole Miss in the regular season, and Texas as well. And just another stat, like they won their third SEC title in the last 4 years. It was their fourth playoff appearance in the last 5 years. Just dominant from Kirby Smart. I mean, is he the best coach in the country right now? I mean, I think you could sure make the argument for it. Who do they lose, though? They did lose a lot of talent to the draft. I mean, offensive tackle Monroe Freeling was their biggest loss. Christian Miller on the offensive line. C.J. Allen, linebacker. Zachariah Branch at wide receiver. Hopefully I said the name. I remember him from the Tennessee game, Matt, when he had the... so me and Matt were at the Tennessee game last year, Georgia-Tennessee, and he made some big plays in that one. From their biggest addition from the transfer portal was Amarius Williams from Auburn. And you look at them on defense, they should be very strong. Their secondary might be the best in college football. I mean, KJ Bolden's the best safety in college football. Cornerback Ellis Robinson should be a first-round draft pick. Their linebacker unit extremely strong with Chris Cole and Raylan Wilson. And then on offense, you got Gunnar Stockton, really experienced. I am interested to see how the passing game looks, because there's a lack of proven production at wide receiver. I mean, six of their last seven, don't hit me with any of the jokes, 6 of the last 7 leading receivers are gone from last year. So is this passing game going to be explosive enough for Gunnar Stockton? That's probably the question that I have around this team. What do you got?
So you said Josh Pate. I think it was him talking about Georgia. Is there another team? I can't think of another team in the conference who returns head coach, quarterback, offensive coordinator, defensive coordinator. So that just goes into kind of what we talk about with the continuity. And as I looked into Georgia, kind of talked myself into them. Just with the continuity, the one question on offense is the receiver room. They bring in the kid from Georgia Tech, and I don't have his name written down. Receiver from Georgia Tech. He's like a big body. He'll probably be their one. And then Lawson Lucky's interesting just because he kind of broke out in that Ole Miss game. So we'll see if he becomes another one of those Georgia tight ends. And then I've written down like the O-line's pretty young. So we'll see how that comes together. Run game should be solid. Nate Frazier's back. Had like 1,000 yards last year. And then the defense, like it was great last year until that Ole Miss game. And Trinidad just gave Kirby problems. I don't expect that to be a thing. Linebackers, as good as you'll get. Raylan Wilson, Chris Cole. And then the interior D-line, Jordan Hall, Elijah Griffin. So we'll see. They returned 6 starters in total, so some more continuity on the back end. Ellis Robinson should be a first-round pick. And then KJ Bolden as well. So we'll see. And then I think it is important to highlight that last year, the way they ended, because the Ole Miss game was just so strange. They demolished Texas and then Alabama as well. And Ole Miss just kind of caught them sleeping. So I'm high on Georgia this year. I think they have the highest win total in the conference at 10.5, which I thought was interesting. I think Texas, and there's someone else with 9.5 right below them. But Georgia is at 10.5, so we'll see.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Now, you got it.
I think all you really need to know is kind of like you pointed out, Joe. You know, you still got Kirby Smart, Glenn Schumann, Mike Bobo. Those are 3 of the best in the business. And bringing back Gunnar Stockton, that's huge for them. He's kind of like a game manager, again, it's the age-old question is who's going to catch the ball for Georgia. Last year they had Zachariah Branch, which was huge. It's another question mark, but they always kind of figure it out. They're bringing back Nate Frazier and Chauncey Bowens. That sounds right. Two running backs. They're always able to run the ball, it seems like. They just do like the small things right. Sam, I don't know if you remember this, but I remember at the Tennessee game specifically, they would throw an incomplete pass and they would run no huddle on an incomplete pass to avoid the crowd not getting into a game. That's just like the small things that like Kirby Smart's prepping for because, Neyland Stadium's known as, one of the toughest environments. We're running no huddle on an incomplete pass. Like, what are we doing? Like, that's just the things that you got to be thinking about everything. And I remember that vividly. And I was like, yeah, Kirby Smart's one of the best to do it. I don't think you would catch that on the broadcast unless, the commentator said it, but that's something I'll always remember. I feel like Gunnar he's got that, big throw ability. We saw that again in the Tennessee game. Some crazy throws. I remember the one right down the right sideline, shocking, but he's got to be able to go head to head with some of these teams. He's got to go out and win games, kind of like we said with Marcel Reed. Can he go out and win games? Georgia wins a lot of close games. Sometimes you need your quarterback to step up and, go out and win the game for you, not just, fit the scheme. And I think that'll be like the next step. Maybe Georgia's kind of stalled out in these first rounds of the playoffs. Maybe that's what they need, Gunnar Stockton, to take that next step for them to get to that next level, get back to the mountaintop.
You mentioned, just real quick, Seb, just because you said Kirby running no huddle and the complete pass. That's like 2 years ago in the SEC championship when it was that pass interference pick six, and Kirby essentially tells the ref it was defensive holding. I don't know if you guys remember that. It was like the replay and
Texas and then the bottles were thrown on the field. Or last year, Kirby convinces the ref that he said he was clapping when he's calling timeouts. I mean,
Kirby's just sicko, man.
He's doing it all. I mean, he's got all the tricks in the bag. So it's just a team you can expect to be in the playoffs every year because they just
for sure
they do it the right way. Well, maybe not the right way, but they're doing everything they can.
They do it their way. One last note, I want to just another schedule. I think that Georgia-Oklahoma game in late September, kind of early in the year, is going to be a pretty intriguing one. I mean, that's their first meeting since 2017 college football playoff semi Rose Bowl game. Georgia did win that one 54-48. It was back like Jake Fromm, Baker Mayfield. So yeah, that'll be an interesting matchup. I haven't seen those two teams face off in a while. Okay. We've reached the final team. We finally got there is the Texas Longhorns. Now, disclaimer, not a Texas fan. I know I'm wearing a Texas hat right now. I'm not a Texas fan. However, I have been glazing them all offseason because I think they are the best team in the SEC because from an NFL talent standpoint, nobody beats them right now. From a position group standpoint, there is nobody as well balanced that they are at every single unit. Every single unit is probably top 10 easily. What was their problem last year? Offensive line, not protecting Arch. Okay, well, they're a top 10 offensive line now, especially with Trevor Gooseby. He might be the best lineman in the NFL draft coming up. And I guess we can start by last season. So they went 10-3, 6-2 in conference. They ranked 12th in the final AP poll. Some people think they got subbed from the playoff. No, they didn't deserve a playoff with some of the losses that they had early in the season, even though they did catch some steam at the end. They were preseason number one last year. With that 7-14 loss versus OSU. Lost to Florida in the swamp. They lost to Georgia at home in that Georgia game. It's just like the Georgia game was a perfect example from the struggles because, I mean, they had 3 points with 5 minutes to go in the third quarter. Okay, and their offense just couldn't click. They couldn't run the ball. They couldn't sustain drives. And you saw a little bit after that Georgia game, though. It's like you saw a little bit of progression from Arch, what we expected from early in the season. He wasn't really missing those short passes. He was getting the completions. And we saw the special play, especially from a dual threat aspect. I mean, the last 2 games of the season for Arch versus A&M and Michigan, he really showed it. Broke a lot of long runs in those ones. And with Arch Manning, it's now or never. It is now or never. But with all of the hype that he got from coming to Texas and how we were claiming he's the next greatest quarterback ever, to not make to not make a college football championship without him would be a complete failure for Steve Sarkisian with the amount of hype that Arch has got in the roster that this team has right now. I mean, from what they did in the transfer portal, so they added wide receiver Cam Coleman from Auburn, who I know, Joe, you think that he's up there with Jeremiah Smith. He's easily the second best wide receiver in the draft. They brought in running backs Hollywood Smothers and Raleek Brown, huge, two of the best running backs in the portal. They brought in defensive tackle Zion Williams from LSU. Like, this offense, man, is going to be absolutely loaded. And I think with Arch Manning slinging the rock, like I said, ever since the Florida game last season where he took 6 sacks, he just kept on improving. He followed it week after week, just improving on his accuracy. And if you're still hating on him, clearly we're watching the end of the year. And, of course, their defensive side, I mean, they got Colin Simmons, the best defensive player in the country. Maybe not the best. I would still put Leonard Moore up above him, but the best edge rusher for sure. And they're just stacked in the secondary. They're stacked in the linebacker position. Absolutely just loaded from top to bottom. They're projected to have 13 draft picks in the NFL next year. That's insane. So I think the clear number one team in the SEC in that one, or in that aspect. You guys disagree with that? Are you still putting Georgia above them?
I mean, talent-wise, I'm also an Arch guy. I would agree with you. But kind of like we talked about with LSU, it's not just as seamless as throwing all the pieces together and they just seamlessly fit. Not to mention, there's a lot of noise coming out of Austin, especially over the past week. What's the name of the linebacker got dismissed?
I missed that.
Yeah, but it was like
recently?
Yeah, he got dismissed from the program, and it was, I don't know, the way Sark kind of talked about it, where he essentially just said it was conduct detrimental to the team. I don't know what that could be. Kind of makes you wonder a little bit. And then I saw some freshmen's parents going off on Twitter, like tweeting at Texas football, at Sark. So a lot of noise. I guess just circling back, 13 draft picks, probably 4 top 10, top 15 picks. Colin Simmons, Trevor Gooseby, Cam Coleman, Arch. And then at the other tackle, they bring in Melvin Siani from Wake. So kind of just shoring up the offensive line. Couldn't run the ball last year. Hollywood Smothers, Raleek Brown. So they just kind of answered every question they had from last year. As far as Arch, like you said, a lot to prove now or never. I think Arch I think he's built for it. His first college game ever, he plays the Ohio State defense that had 8 NFL draft picks. And really, if you look after the Florida game, that was embarrassing. But from there, he responded. I think they won 7 of 8. And then you mentioned the bowl game. He had 150 on the ground, 2 rushing touchdowns, threw for like 230, 2 passing touchdowns. That was kind of like, I think people started to realize, like, okay, this is the Arch that we were waiting for. Mentioned preseason number 1 last year. So just a ton of expectation. I think he did bounce back nicely as the season went on. Just interesting, like, say they go 9-3 again and miss the playoff. Do they move on from Sark?
I was just gonna ask that. It's funny you say that. I don't think they do, but you kind of got to ask the question, because if it's not now, then when? With the amount of talent he's got right now, if he can't win with this roster, you're rightfully questioning what roster is he going to win with. You know? Yeah,
no doubt. And then this year they get the Ohio State game at home. So
have to win that one. You cannot lose that game.
Because we talked about it
last year.
Yeah, we talked about it ad nauseum. Like, the committee will punish you for playing tough out of conference schedule. You can't go into SEC play with a loss on your record already. You got the game at home this year. You lost last year. They need to win week 2. And then we talked about it with Tennessee. That week 4 game could be sneaky. Tennessee's going to be undefeated. You have to go to Neyland. Tennessee has everything in front of them at that point. So that'll be a big one. And then Red River, that'll be a war like it always is. And then they have LSU. They're in Death Valley week 11, and then they have to go to College Station this year. So like I have 11-1 written down, and then like in parentheses 10-2. It's just because I'm an Arch guy, and then you also know how I feel about Cam Coleman. So I'll be watching a ton of Texas this year. But once again, just super fascinating, just the way all this talent got put together. like the running back duo is insane. Cam Coleman, Wingo, like they're just loaded everywhere.
100%.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
I agree. If it's not this team, what more can you do? I mean, I would argue last year Texas and Georgia were, you got to imagine, even talent wise. You got to say neck and neck. Like there was no big advantage one way. Georgia just played smash mouth football and just handed it to them. I mean, it's a character thing at that point, and that's either the coaches or the players. And you keep reloading with all these players. You can spend all the money in the world. You could, bring in Hollywood Smothers, outbid Alabama for him, outbid Alabama for Cam Coleman. You could do it all, but if you can't, win with the talent, then what are we doing here? And yeah, like going down that schedule, I mean, you would think, oh, that Texas in theory could go undefeated, but then you could walk yourself into, yeah, they could lose to Ohio State. Yeah, sneaky like Tennessee, maybe Arch, can't handle Neyland. And then you think, okay, at LSU, you start to go down the list and you could start same way you walk yourself into, oh, they could go undefeated. You could walk yourself into, hey, this team in theory, you could find 4 losses, not by any means saying that's going to happen, but you could say, hey, we could find 4 losses on this schedule, no doubt.
Mm-hmm. So with that, I think we touched on enough from Texas in overview. That was our final team in the SEC. And to wrap things up here, let's just give some predictions. I mean, as you can tell from what I said, I think Texas wins the SEC. Joe and Matt, who is your pick for the conference? Maybe let's do a conference title pick. I think Texas Georgia is pretty square, but you look at it. I mean, maybe I'll throw LSU in there. Maybe I think Lane Kiffin does get them boys off to a hot start in year one. So I'll probably go Texas LSU just because I don't want to be square. Pick Georgia. That's gonna be my prediction.
Yeah, if we're not going Georgia, Texas, and Sam, I did mention to you this before the show. I have Alabama in the playoff this year. I think the SEC has a real shot at getting 4 teams, definitely 3, and I think the 3 are Georgia, Alabama, Texas. So I'll say Georgia, Bama in the SEC championship.
Nice.
I like where your head's at, Joe.
Yeah.
Let's run it back. Let's do it again. Rematch of the regular season again. I'm going to agree. Georgia, Bama. I think that Bama, there's a lot of fluctuation. A lot could happen there, but I think this is Kalen DeBoer's, it's his first team. The torch has finally been passed. Jeremy Bernard was the first player drafted, not under the Saban era. I think there's 2 players left on the roster that were under the Saban era. It's officially Kalen DeBoer's team. The torch has been passed. I think it's his time. I think it's exciting, and I think Keelan Russell, Ryan Grubb, and the boys, that defense, I think Bama lifts the trophy for the SEC championship.
Awesome. There you had it. There you have it. I think that's going to wrap things up. So we're well over 2 hours on this podcast. So if you guys made it all the way to the end, really appreciate you guys listening. Hopefully you gained some ball knowledge on the SEC and what to expect from us or expect from the conference this season. We are as excited as can be. I cannot wait until it kicks off next season, and so we can finally get to watch these teams. But yeah, with that, this is our final conference preview. So as we go into, we have week 0 coming up this week, and we're gonna be doing a little reaction show to that, and then we'll get into our predictions for week 1 after that. So a lot of college football is coming your way. We are hitting the head on it right now, and can't wait to keep bringing you guys a bunch of lovely content. So. With that, Matt, appreciate you joining us today. Taking some time out and talking some SEC. I thought it was a great time. Hopefully, we'll have you on again soon.
Yep.
Hopefully, not too soon. Otherwise, that means Bama's off to a slow start. So, but yeah, no, me and Matt are actually going. By the way, for the viewers, me and Matt are going to the Ohio. So yeah, you got to come on week 2 because we're going to the Ohio State Texas game. So we'll have to preview that and as well. But. Yeah, I think that's going to wrap things up. Appreciate you guys tuning in, and we will see you maybe Sunday, Monday, one of those 2, recapping week 0.